from 955 North Lakeshore Boulevard in Marquette, Michigan. At what time is this? 12:01 Eastern Time. Nick, welcome to Base Camp.
Thank you.
How the hell are you?
I am doing well.
Fantastic.
Yes.
First time on a podcast?
First time on a podcast.
What prompted you to want to come all the way up here to spend time with us?
Well, I have been coming up here for at least I started coming to the Marquette races, and then I got introduced to the Margie, which is a story. But yeah, come up here for this is probably to share some stories from the Margie and Crusher and Polar Stroll here.
You did it this year, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm kind of humbled. I'm the first non-biker, I think.
probably.
Yeah. So
You're Hall of Fame now.
I am.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Or condolences, whichever one you prefer.
Yep.
What do you think of the table?
Table's nice.
Huh?
Yes.
Handles water well.
Yep.
So this is
Right off the bat.
we'll intro the table. The table was actually created by Paul, Tara's dad. He just rolled it in here. Was it yesterday or the day before?
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. Yeah, we were like, because he's really good with woodworking. Amazing. There's a cabinet out there that the coffee maker's on and everything. He built that for us, and just a super handy, great dude. He's building all of our overcoming obstacle courses now
Okay.
for the youth adventure teams. It's unbelievable how quickly he pumps this stuff out. And then you ask him, like we asked him about the table.
Right.
We're like, how long did that take? He's like, 20 hours. And I'm like, 20 hours? It's like a crusher of woodworking.
I mean, those are skills I do not possess, but
No.
I'm amazed by it.
Well,
20 hours, that sounds quick to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank God Paul does.
yes. Correct.
So here's what I want to hear straight from your mouth here, since we're going to tell stories today. Talk about when you came up to preview the Polar Roll,
Yes.
the course
Oh boy.
this year,
Yep.
right?
So I was coming up. I had the Polar Roll, thinking about that, and as I told you, you asked if I had never done the Polar Roll, and I said no. I said I'd never been on snowshoes for more than 3 miles at one point.
Did you catch that?
At that point. So
Let me set it up for him. So he reaches out to me because he wants to come up and, kind of put in like a
we don't have any snow.
right. They have no snow. He's never done a race on snow. So he wants to come up and he asks if there's any like course proofing or anything he could do for us because he's a nice guy. But he came to us asking if there's anything we want him to do, and he forgot we're not nice guys. Okay, go ahead. What happened?
So, as I'm driving up, you mentioned it, and you send me a link and said, "By the way, I have no idea what's out there, and I've never been out. I haven't been out there at all. But it was I think it was an added, enhanced feature.
Yep.
Because you got permission from the cross country.
Yep.
Club.
Over by the ski trails.
Right. So, I started out and started out at High Street. Yep. And
Not High Street, Hill Street.
Hill Street.
Yep. You're on top of Hill Street in the parking lot.
Yes. And I mean, like I said, I'd never been on snowshoes. I had emailed you asking if the snowshoes I was going to buy actually counted as snowshoes because I didn't even know if there were rules about that. And you just wrote back, "Those are snowshoes." So I thought I had the most minimal snowshoes possible. But anyway, I went out there, and the first, I would say, mile or two, I made a wrong turn almost immediately based on the GPX file. So I backtracked, and then the first bit was groomed and was great,
Yep.
And then we got into the cross country ski trails, and then you took me the file took me off of the groom stuff.
Off of the ski trails.
Yes, and at that point, my 10-mile loop went from I don't know, maybe in 2 hours to I think it was closer to 4. So, and
Had you sent me a link, like a live link to follow you?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yep, I sent that, and then I was like, I had to get home, and I was thinking, okay, I really got to go. And I got back in the truck, and you actually texted me and said, "Are you alive?" I said, yes, and there was nothing out there. It was fresh tracks and 2 feet of snow.
It had never been groomed, Mark.
Yep. It was neat to see. I mean, part of it, we got onto this SB
SBT?
SBT, yes. And I recognized it from going the other direction and at night from Margie. But the SBT had not been touched, and at one point my snowshoes, it was a disaster. So I took my gloves off to try and fix my socks and my shoes and then my snowshoes.
Yeah.
And my gloves were wet, and putting them back on was, thank goodness I packed another pair in my pack. So that was bad, but I got those out and kept going and finished. And it wasn't long after that you said you went out to try and groom it and you couldn't groom it with the snowmobile, and so we're not using any of it. So I was like, oh, good. But I was happy to at least help out in some way, and I got some time on my feet too.
Yeah, we did use some of it.
Yeah.
That over by South Jackson Pit, where there's a climb and a descent, when I took this sled through there, it's like, there's no way we're going to have time to get this to set up for bikes. So we had to cut that out. It was amusing, however, to follow your footprints.
Yes.
That was fantastic.
At the Polar Roll later that, a couple weeks later, whatever, I actually saw my footprints in the snow yet. I was like, no one else went that way.
So how did the actual event go?
It was good.
Snowshoes were probably the weapon of the day.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, the tough part, it was groomed, but then, the bikes come through and then you get like a one fat tire
rut.
A rut.
Yeah.
So that's good for one snowshoe, but not the other.
Yeah.
So I kind of rotated which foot was in there, and that caused obviously some blistering and stuff.
Oh, sure.
But it was beautiful. It was kind of snowing all day. It was kind of snow globes.
It was an awesome day.
Yep. And there's a lot of misery loves company out there, and
there was a lot of misery out there that day, especially amongst the biking community.
Yes. There was, I think I shared it, but it was right by Epic Trail, and there was an old guy walking his bike and a younger guy right behind him, and I was going faster than them on snowshoes, and I passed him and I said, just keep moving, and the younger guy dropped a couple F-bombs, and he actually said, is it all like this? Is it like, have you ever done this before? I was passing him, and he asked the older guy, have you ever done this before? And the older guy's like, yep. And he said, is it always like this? And the old guy said, nope, sometimes it's worse.
I think you sent me that story in an email. That's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Polar Roll. It's funny because Polar Roll is the shortest. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you take the ultra out of it. So it's the shortest, 906 AT trilogy event. Some people call it the easy one, the gimme. But you just never know what you're going to get. The snow, temperatures, like we were on a run of 2 or 3 good years. So I think people had forgotten how terrible it can be. And I'm really glad we were able to remind them this year that Polar Roll can really suck.
Well, originally we were going from Marquette
Yes.
out to Ishpeming.
Yes.
That had me really concerned because
as it rightfully should.
Right. The one person I talked to more than anyone was Jason Schneider.
He's
been up here, and he said, that snowmobile trail it's horrendous. And then he just went on and on about falling off, trying to stop to take a leak, and you're up to your waist, and then it's just all mashed potatoes. And I thought, and then knowing these events, I thought, well, if it says it's 30, is it going to be 40?
Right.
So I was relieved when the course changed.
Yeah. Well, if we had run it from Marquette, it probably would have been 42 miles.
Yep.
Yeah. There's no way to run it from Marquette and not have it be that long unless we cut out a bunch of single track, but we would not do that.
Right. And then I was just genuinely concerned, can I actually do this?
Yeah. Right. So it was a pretty good day all in all. You finished?
I did finish. Yep.
What was your time?
7 hours and something.
7 hours. How many miles?
30. Maybe it came into like 29 on my
I think it was 29.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What did you think of Hill Street? The first section you went through with the hills.
I, again, didn't mind being on snowshoes,
Yeah.
And it's, first section, and I had actually seen that section kind of, a little bit, so I was familiar with it, but I just, what was good was it actually slowed me down a little bit rather than just have the adrenaline going and, get a good sweat going right off the bat. But, all the bikers kind of piled up there was interesting. And I did not plan to wear my snowshoes from the beginning, and then it was announced about probably 20 times when I was at the start line saying, if you're on snow, you got to have your snowshoes on. So, all right, I guess I'm running down the street in snowshoes. So
what was your, because I actually don't know this part of the story. So pre-906 events, pre-Polar Roll, pre-Margie, and pre-Crusher, what had you done before? What's the ballpark of your experience running or just events in general?
Yeah, I was not a runner growing up at all.
Okay.
And in chiropractic school, I have 3 older sisters, and my sister Kathy said, I want to run a marathon. And I said, I'll run one with you. So in 2004, we ran the Chicago Marathon.
Nice.
At that point, I was standing at the start line and thinking, I don't know that I can do this, and kind of a terrifying feeling. And then finished, and then it suddenly was like, okay, can I do it faster, And then
sure.
From there, so I've done like 90 marathons or longer, but
wow.
like 30 marathons. But so I was doing marathons a lot, and then I did a trail 50K, Chippewa 50K, and getting on the trails was something.
Is that down in Chippewa?
Yep.
Chippewa, Eau Claire area?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all on the Ice Age Trail, and it's a beautiful race. It's all single track Ice Age Trail, and you're just going around ponds and, up and down hills and Pine Needle Trail, which you don't know much about Pine Needle Trail, but it's really nice to run on.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to do any of that.
No. But so that got me into trail running, and then that kind of kept going. How much further can I do? I did a road 50 miler, and then I kind of got into, I did trail 50.
Marquette Trail 50?
Yep. So the first time actually I didn't do Marquette because I was afraid of doing, Marquette, the trail 50 is a small loop and then a big loop. And the big loop is the 4 peaks.
Yes.
And the 50 miler, you do it one way and then you turn around and go the other way.
Okay.
And I had done the 50K 4 times, and I could not imagine going back out.
Gotcha.
So a couple of years ago, I went back out. And that was actually the year that I did the Margie. I did the Marquette Trail 50.
Oh, okay. So you did the 50K the first few times.
50K 4 times, and then the 50 miler 3 times.
I haven't done it. It's a running event, so clearly I haven't done it. But from what I hear, it's fantastic.
It is.
It seems to be a well-run event.
Yep.
Sells out, I believe, very quickly. Yeah, strong following.
The first time I came was 2014 and ran the 50K and loved it. I had not run on anything like that up here before, and that's the first time I'd been to Marquette. And I don't remember how I found out about Marquette or the Trail 50K, but it was hard and beautiful, and it was, going up and down the peaks that's the first time I'd done an event where you actually had to use your hands, to climb up and down back and stuff. So
yeah, that's the best part.
Yep. So then I was doing 50Ks, and I did a couple trail 50 milers, but the next step after that is like a 100 miler, and I was afraid of it. No interest in doing that. No, wasn't gonna take it on. Too much logistics. You have to eat so much and plan it, and I just figured I might not be all that good at it, and so then there was like a fear there of trying it. For sure. I definitely have some characters where if I don't think I can be really good at something, then I don't want to do it or try it. Take me out of my comfort zone a little.
So you're saying that you've got that a little bit.
Absolutely.
That if you can't be really good at it, you don't want to do it.
Correct. Yep. And I think that's different. I've changed in that regard. I mean, these events have probably helped in that, but that was definitely why I kind of stopped at 50 miles and didn't go further.
That's interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people have that mindset. If they're not going to be really good at something, or even just marginally good where they don't stand out as being terrible, they don't want to do it. Right. I'll tell you, when I was over at Straight Line this morning shooting, Shelly's the owner, we were talking kind of about this because Cable's new to archery, my son, and he doesn't love shooting on the line when there's a bunch of other people because he's convinced they're all watching him, right? So he gets in his own head, and it actually does really affect his shooting. So we were talking about that, and I think that that's actually quite normal, but we can actually have you unpack what you said, but I heard you say that maybe that's changed a little bit, having come through our events. And I like to hear that because that is a big part of the intention behind our events and the way that they're structured and the mind games and the unexpected shit that we throw at people. It's to sort of break those barriers down or take down those walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Right about that time, Jason Schneider again, he said, he told me about the Margie. I remember him saying the word, and I was thinking like short for Margie, like what is this, and
short for Gesick.
Yes, right. And he was kind of there are no aid stations. It's really hard, Yep. And I was like, okay, yep. And I signed up for it. I think 3 straight years for the 50, and didn't come.
Mm-hmm.
There was a reason or an excuse or
whatever. Things happen. I don't know what it was.
So he would bring my bib home back from check-in.
Oh.
So I had 3 bibs pinned up on the wall in my office right in front of my desk. So 3 DNSs. Yes.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. And then finally I signed up. I kept signing up, And then that 2021 is when I signed up for the 50 and said, okay, I'm going to do this, and I was training for it. And there's no crew. I didn't get it, but I knew it was really hard, and I was going to have to do it on my own. And okay, I'm going to do that. And
is this after we put in the no pacer rule?
I don't know when.
But you didn't have a pacer?
No.
Okay. Nope. It was probably right around that time, actually, around 21, I think, that we ended up pulling the pacer. I think 19 might have been the last year that we allowed it. Mm-hmm. So when you came to Margie, 2021 is your first year. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, you'd done a bunch of marathons. Mm-hmm. So on road or not trail. Aside from the Marquette Trail 50 and that Chippewa, what else trail had you done?
Glacial Trail 50, which is a event in October right near my house.
Okay.
And I've done that one 13 times. I do it every year. There's a 50 mile and a 50K. Okay. And a couple of years ago at the start, the RD handed out a blanket for someone who had done 500 cumulative miles. And wow. I was like, okay, I want that blanket.
Wow.
So, yep. So I've done it 13 times, and I think I have to do it maybe 3 or 4 more times, depending if I do the 50 mile or 50K to get that blanket. I want a 500 mile blanket. But so that one's right around my house, but I've done that one a couple times, and actually more than a couple. But I hadn't, and then there's one in the Southern Kettles. I had done that. But, the most exotic I had gone was I went to Kansas City for a 50K, which that race was really hard. It was like a 10-mile loop, and it was mud and everything. But
which one do you think was the hardest, or which one was the one that prepared you the most to take on or to attempt Margie?
Marquette.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The first loop of Marquette is partially on some of the NTN trails, Forestfield trails, and then you're on the North Country Trail, which I say it's not a trail. It's just like a route. It's just rocks and, and I can come back to that with when last year at the Crusher, that part of the North Country Trail was horrendous. But, Marquette got me ready for Margie. And then
makes sense.
I was doing hill repeats. There's this hill in Plymouth. It's an old ski hill, and it's called Nut Hill. And I'm a fanatic about it, but I go down and up that thing. It's like 110 feet in an eighth of a mile. So, it's steep. So I was going up and down that, and I told a couple of buddies I was doing that. And one guy, Craig, he had tried the Margie, and he #quittered at 93, which...
That hurts.
Yep. And so he was up there, and Matt Lee, who has since done the Margie, Matt was up there too. And I mentioned that I was doing the Margie, and I said I was just going to go up there by myself. And Craig was like, you can't do that. You can't go by yourself. So they actually, while we're doing Nut Hill repeats, they said, we'll come up. So
so they came up to support?
Yep. Matt and Craig did. And Jason was up here on a bike with his daughter.
Yep.
And, that crew. And they kind of put the plan together. And that was 21. I did the 50.
How did it go? What was your time out there?
12 hours, I think.
It's good.
I think.
Yeah. That's a solid time.
It was
after dark.
I didn't need a headlamp.
Get in there.
It was real close.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I went off course almost immediately. So I was looking at my phone, and I'm like, I'm on the wrong side of the Carp River. This is not good. And
Oh, you went across the river?
yes.
Nice.
Because the 100-mile course kind of was right in there too.
Yes.
There's a volunteer or something. Somehow I ended up over there and started backtracking. And Craig, who was familiar with it, was looking at my location. He's like,
"That's wrong, bro."
Yep. So I turned around and started coming back, and everyone followed me. So I was not alone. So then we all just turned, and Craig said, "Don't worry, you're going to get enough miles."
Misery Loves Company. That's a plug for Misery Loves Company.
Yes. So we ended up on the back. He's like, come around the backside of Marquette, and then it'll work out. And it did. And I mean, it was amazing. It was beautiful. And I was terrified of not having the tokens, and they were all at the top of Jasper Knob.
Yeah,
Here.
right at the end.
Yep.
Oh man, that fucked with some people.
Yeah, that's not fun. But
Did you miss any of them coming? On your way up or down? Did you get them all?
I got them all.
Because that year, I think there were 4. 3 of them were on one side, and then there was one on the opposite side of the trail. I mean, it's literally right there, but one was on the left side of the trail instead of the right. And we had, I don't remember how many it was, 10, 12, 13 people show up at the finish line, missing one of the 4, and they're all right there. Crazy. And then we're like, no, you missed one. They're all on Jasper Knob. You got to go back, if or not, and then you're a quitter. And they're like, I grabbed them all. There's not a 4th one there. And we're like, listen, 250 people have finished ahead of you, and they have 4. Figure it out, bro.
Now, yes. And I had 4, and the volunteer at the finish line, I'll remember this, because she asked for the 5th. And I thought I literally said, you're just messing with me like Todd would mess with me. I didn't know that she was serious. And she's like, no, there's a 5th, because we had to start with one.
Yeah.
And it was back there. And, I just remember, like, there's a video of me just going, oh, thank God. Okay, there it is. And then I handed it. And then.
Where did you keep them? I'm always fascinated by this, because when people come to the finish with their tokens, I can't believe how they keep them in the kit. They're everywhere. They're in like Snickers wrappers and all over the place. Where'd you keep them?
Mine, I have a zipper pocket right in the back of my shorts, and they went in there.
Okay.
And then I'd say about every 1.5 to 2 miles. Yep. Okay.
Make sure they're still there.
Yep.
What was it like out there? So if that year, all the checkpoints were within the last 2 miles, what was the chatter on the trail? People talking about it?
Yep. There's a little bit of that. Yes. Some of that, but I was so hyper aware looking for it that I just felt like, I did not miss one.
Yeah. Did we have empty ones out there that year?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Good. It's good to know we weren't slippy in that year.
Which actually, so that was 21, and then 23, the first one we came, that's when I did the Margie 100.
Yeah.
And the first one I came to was the little red hot things.
Over in Marquette.
Right. So I saw those, and I actually started walking away. So like, oh, it's just a fake one. And then
the infamous dum-dum year.
Yep, the dum-dum year. And then I stopped, and I thought, oh, what if it's not? What if it's not? What if this is the token? And I think I grabbed 2, just be careful.
Oh, man.
Yes.
That was drama. There were some people not happy with me that year. Oh, boy. So you collected all the candy. You were good.
I was good. Yep.
Where were you in 22? What'd you do in 22?
Matt Lee ran it. And so
okay.
When I finished in
you supporting?
Yep.
Got it.
When I finished in 21, I knew that was the Margie was going to be the first 100 I did. Like it was just a eye-opening and just, life-changing, experience.
Life-changing in what way?
Just because I had prepared for it more than I ever had. I had, I felt like it went really well. I felt good. I mean, I had all kinds of energy at the finish. It was so challenging, but such a beautiful course too. And the camaraderie, among the other people, the bikers too, like just the whole energy and environment was different. And
will you talk for a minute from a runner's perspective? Because we have not talked about this yet on the podcast. So one of the unique things about Margie is the interplay between runners and bikers. You're on the course at the same time. the run 100 starts from Forestville on Friday. You're out on course literally 24 hours before the bikes are out there. So I'm just curious from your perspective as a runner, what's it like? Because you're obviously getting passed by a ton of bikes. Mm-hmm. We've always heard that it's a pretty good vibe and everybody's, on average, supporting one another, cheering each other on.
Yep.
What's your take from a runner's perspective?
So when I did the 100, I didn't see any runners or any bikers. I was done before they came through. But for the 50, I mean, it was just that there was never a rivalry. There was never a annoyance, from any biker. I mean, they would be walking next to their bike up a hill and I'd be walking right next to them. And, and they would be, often, I can't believe you're running this, and I thought,
And you're probably thinking the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At least, you're walking your bike up the hill and then it's so technical going down, you're going to walk your bike down the hill too. I mean, I can't imagine having a bike along, and like you said, beautiful day to take your bike for a walk, and, but yeah, we saw people, over and over again, the same kind of group, get to something flat, they'd go by, and then I'd eventually catch up on technical stuff or whatever else, but you would hear them coming, I was always concerned that I didn't want to be in their way, especially, and there's not many of them, but the nice flowing, downhill, that was,
is there even one?
There's a little bit by Marquette. Yeah. But watching them do that was amazing.
Yeah.
It was fun. And then I remember when the fast guys came through, Matt Acker, I remember saying, saying to him, he's biker coming up, I'm like, okay, he was about 2 minutes ahead. Yeah, I know. And just hammering away, so, but that's the fast guys. And even, the back, there's no difference there.
No. All respectful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, going back to Jason, he was doing the 50 that year and he caught me on the Iron Ore Trail.
Okay.
And I heard him before I saw him because I heard him singing, and he's a terrible singer, but he was singing, I love to ride my bicycle. I love to ride my bike, as he goes flying by me, and then later on we're at the top of some, ridge out Ishkwimming, and I come around the corner and he's standing at the top of it with his bike and he's like, oh no.
Not loving riding his bicycle.
No, and not loving seeing me either, and but it was that kind of camaraderie,
Yeah. How's the support cruise?
That was great.
Yeah. There's, I haven't seen it, but the way that part of the event has developed over the years is phenomenal.
I got a grilled cheese sandwich. It was phenomenal. What a great surprise. Literally, I don't know how they got in there,
Yeah.
And then there was a guy, I saw him a couple times and he just had a cooler and he had, water, Coke, and Fireball.
Yeah.
Were the three options, but I had one of them.
Water, Coke, or Fireball.
Yep. I had one of the most delicious little cans of Coke I've ever had in my life, and it was great. And, my crew was there. It was Craig and Matt that time. And it was great. The mutual aid thing is completely new. And like I said, it was, being back out there in 22 when Matt did it, and then being able to try and do that thing again. Now you kind of figure it out a little bit. And then, last year I helped a couple guys who were doing the 50 miler, so I came back up and it's a whole different energy than anything I'd participated in previously.
So the neutral support or the mutual support that, we've allowed, do you, from your experience out there, having done the event, do you feel like most people are doing a good job of following that mutual support? Like, hey, if your crew's supporting you, but somebody else is there in need, they will support that person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything unless they ran out of something, I can't think of an issue. I got a wet wipe one year, which was at the exact perfect spot to get that, and needed. And
who would think that a wet wipe would be?
Oh my goodness.
Just something that would bring you extreme happiness, huh?
Correct. Yes. And
That's hilarious.
It was perfect. It was right before going up to Suicide Hill. I remember that. I was like, anything? Yep, they had that. That was perfect. So there's just those little examples that stick with you,
Yeah.
12 hours worth, but that wet wipe, oh my goodness. And I think, I can remember as a crew, I remember, the runners seemed to be, I don't know, my experience was they seemed to be a little bit more self-sufficient, like need anything, but the bikers got Coke, I'll take Coke, or,
Yeah.
they're looking for stuff and it's great to be able to provide that too.
Yeah.
You know, and be there.
Yeah, it's cool that the support around the event has developed the way that it has. It's actually an interesting story because I did the Check 100 a couple times. This is back in like 2016, 2017, somewhere in that area. And I think I did it 2-3 times. The first couple times that I did it, the aid was very similar to what we've now seen develop at Margie. Like you'd roll into, I think it's Mosquito Brook, or I can't remember where it is. It's over by Hayward. It's kind of the turnaround point, or at least it was at that time. So you'd roll in there and there'd be support crews, basically family and friends. And they're all there, supporting the racers. And first couple times I did it as a racer, I'm like, man, this is a great atmosphere. And then, interesting, the last time we did it, the organizers ended up changing. They didn't really change the self-supported. I should qualify this. They didn't change the self-supported rule. They started to enforce it. So it had been in play previously, but they weren't enforcing it, from what I could tell, at the turnaround. When you had this great community support develop and family was there and friends were there and they could help you or they could help somebody else, that was great. But when they tried to change it and follow the letter of the law, totally different vibe. And when we rolled out ours, it's just really fascinating to me that I think it says it's a good thing about people. Mm-hmm. That when people heard we're doing this event and there's no aid stations and we're not going to help you, see an Ishpeming or not, whatever. People, they rose to the occasion, and they've made the event. They've added a dimension to the event that would make it totally different if it wasn't there today.
For sure.
Yeah, it is amazing. Mm-hmm. That's one of the. It is like a glimmer, right, for humanity. It really is, because of the way that people rally together on that day. For 25 hours.
And then like I said, I've been up here a couple of times and I can think of trying to find a spot that no one else is, and then getting there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of where it is. It's like I've only been there at night, but it's like a quarter to a half mile hike up into it. And there's a big downhill and then a hard right-hander, and we can get up to that spot. It's maybe 9 miles from the finish on the Margie, and we can, let's get over there. Get a backpack and a cooler and let's get up there and help them out, and finding different spots, because often the same spots, you'll see a bunch of different crew members because they know that that's where they can get, but then you find those new spots where you can try and make a difference too. So
interesting when you're able to be there as a support crew, and instead of experiencing your own emotions, getting to experience your friends or a complete strangers, huh? Mm-hmm. I bet you got to see some interesting stuff out there.
Yes. Yeah, the ones at Sicko Tamir, it's Ishpeming on like I think it's the north side, where you go, there's a big knob over there and you go up it, and then you come back down and then you grab that rails to trails area and come back through and you can see the finish line over there,
Yep.
It's always hot in the afternoon when they're coming through, and people come off of that thing and they're dusty and they're hot. And that's a spot where you see some struggles, and
some chinks in the armor.
Yes. Yep.
Some doubt in the eyes.
Yes. And I've been there. I can relate to that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your 100-mile experience. How'd that go?
It was,
I mean, it had to go well because you said you didn't see any bikers.
Correct.
Could you imagine that, Mark, running it and not seeing any bikes?
Well, you started us in the morning.
Yeah.
Previous to that, it started in the middle of Friday.
Yeah, at noon. We moved up to 8 o'clock.
Yep. Yeah. So it was an overwhelming, I don't know, literally life-changing experience. And I know you kind of know some of that. I've talked about it, but it was 23 and I was kind of just personally hurting, but I knew that, from 21, I wanted to do this, and I had a good crew coming up with me.
Personally hurting. What does that mean? Just what was going on?
Well, I was struggling with alcohol, and I was struggling and, going through a divorce.
I remember us talking about the alcohol piece. I didn't remember the divorce part. Mm-hmm. So struggling with alcohol, going through divorce. This is 2023. Yep.
I mean, it was before. I mean, it was 2021. All it had been years brewing, and
Okay.
I just wasn't happy. I shouldn't say I wasn't happy. I had all kinds of reasons to be happy, but I wasn't, and I got up here in 21 and I was a mess. I had not prepared. Like I trained and everything, but I got up here and my friends got up there and I literally the night before I gave them my credit card and said, "Can you go buy stuff?" And I went to bed on Thursday night and flashback that's the last time I drank alcohol was that Thursday before the Margie 100.
In 23?
23.
Okay. So you drank the night before?
Yeah, the day before. Yep.
The day before. A beer? 2 beers?
Wasn't
10 beers?
It was whiskey.
Oh, whiskey.
Yep.
Okay. Yes. Go right after it.
Oh, it was dark and bad and a struggle in it. I just, I knew I'd been struggling. I knew I had a problem, but then, honestly with alcohol, I hit it, just make sure everything looks good on the surface, and I was doing that and it came to a head that day. And
the day of the race or the day before?
Day before.
Day before.
Yep.
So did you get a little out of hand?
Oh yeah. Way out of hand. Yep.
Okay. Way out of hand. This is the day before you do Margie.
Day before the Margie 100.
Okay. Definitely things are coming undone. It's coming to a head.
It's coming to a head, to say the least.
Yeah.
That afternoon, I got pulled over, and
ooh,
yep, and the cop let me go, and it was a. I can still think of it. I'm like, oh my God, I've got my friends, I've got important people coming up here, and I'm gonna end up, booked. And it was as low as I've been. And I was able to, ask for help that night. And literally I went to bed and I got dressed the next day. And, the guys that were up there, they probably knew something was wrong, but I wasn't telling them, exactly everything that happened. Now they all know. And now I'm saying it on a podcast.
So that they didn't know, you didn't share it with them?
No.
Oh.
No. Just said, yep.
Okay.
Yep. I was a mess. I was just a mess. It's just, depressed, just all kinds of emotions, not, all the things that drive people to cope, or use coping mechanisms.
Yeah. So that's what the alcohol was?
Sure. Yep.
Coping.
And it works good until it doesn't. And then, if it worked, then maybe if I do a little more, it'll work more. And it was bad, and
yeah.
And anyway, I cried. I remember you at the start of the 100, we're standing there holding our bikes and you said, this looks like a good group. And you said something about the finish percentage. And I was just thinking, look at what's here, look at this opportunity. And, man, I was obviously physically, not in perfect shape. And, emotionally, I wasn't either. I just remember crying at the start line, like, okay, let's do this,
Yeah.
And I started and did the bike, didn't crash, so that was good. And started running and it started to feel better. Tried to just be in the moment the whole time.
Yeah.
And
how often do we do that, huh? Fucking never.
There's 100 stories there. I once tried. I used to go to a sensory deprivation tank. So if I'm going to do something, I'm not just going to try sitting down and meditating. I'm going to take out all sensory. And I had a huge panic attack the first time I tried going there. It was unbelievable. And
sensory deprivation tank.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, it was the first time I thought, well, maybe I'll try that. Why not? If you're going to do something, go all out. So
sure.
And that was, I can since practice it. It's a practice like anything else. But that run, just don't go too fast. Take your time, keep working. And I felt I was just even. I don't think I was showing much emotion. I had a lot going on in my mind, and everything. But I got to south trails. Started to rain a little bit, which felt great. I was moving well, and then I was trying not to race, but just be in the moment. But I knew I was in 4th place at that point, and worked my way to Jackson Mine, and then it was getting dark, and I remember there were two guys eating in the parking lot at Jackson Mine, and I wasn't really eating much. I was drinking some, not enough of either, you know. And I remember my crew telling me when we left, you know, okay, we're not going to see you for like 2 hours, so you've got to eat a bunch of food here, you know. So I did, and then, you know, a quarter mile down the trail, I puked it all up. It's just, but I'm just going to keep moving, you know. So, the Margie that I was concerned about going back a little bit. I remember the 10 arrow tree, and that was the one time
The 10 arrow tree.
Yep, I got off there. Despite the 10 arrows, it's the one time I went the wrong way, you know, but I corrected it relatively quickly. But the course, you know, it flows. You've got, okay, now I can cruise on this, you know, paved part a little bit. And then, okay, now I'm through Marquette, get to Jackson, you know, and then do the loops there and everything else. And I left Jackson and it was dark. I remember I'd get to my crew and be like, I just need a nap, but they weren't going to let me nap, you know? So just kept moving. And like I said, I'm just like kind of cleansing stuff, you know, the whole time. And just thinking, I can't do this anymore. And
so it was in your head the whole time?
Yeah. Yep.
Just playing through, just sorting it out, figuring it out, or just working through it.
Working through it. Shedding it.
Yeah.
I feel like would be a way to describe it.
That makes sense.
There were tears out there, you know, I mean, it was just a powerful experience, and it was hard. I mean, I was just kept puking, you know, and I remember that I couldn't drink. I'd tried drinking something, and then
This is after you got to Ramba, the puking, or the whole time?
The whole time.
Oh, okay. That's rough.
Once I was through Ramba, I remember I was puking. I mean, my abs were cramping.
Yeah, right.
You know, it was. I was going like this on the trail to try and get them to release some and stuff, but just kept plugging away. And then, you know, I got into the last little section, and my friends were saying they were going to go get, you know, okay, you got 9 miles left, you know, and we're going to go get breakfast. And that, I mean, the trail, you know, I was definitely blaming Todd and blaming Danny, because I remember there's a part of the trail where you can see where you're going, but instead you go up like this and then just come right back down 10 feet in front of you, and then you keep going, you know, just to go up a hill. And I mean, I was exhausted, and I at one point during that last 9 miles, it dawned on me that I had gone 100, you know, because I was thinking, you know, 24 hours for 100. That's kind of, you know, as a runner, that's like that magic number.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm not going to do this in 24 hours. And you realize, well, it's not 100 miles, you know, it's.
Oh, is it more?
Yeah, a couple more.
Oh,
yes. But came up Jasper Knob. There's a photographer there. You know, took a moment there, and then as I'm coming back down, a couple cars show up, and I recognize them as like the crew for somebody behind me. And now I'm thinking, oh no. So from Jasper Knob, I ran the whole thing in, because looking over my shoulder and then pulling my phone out, because the last thing I want to do is miss the turn.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that would suck.
That would suck. Yes. But came down and finished, and it was incredible. Tara was there.
Yeah.
She handed me the buckle and just sat down, and it was just like a.
Did you send me a picture of her and you?
Yep.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote a newspaper column.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yep. Because that was she was there, and I didn't know that, you know, and I knew when the tragedy happened, it didn't put it together, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, she was there, you know, and it just hits you right.
I know.
Right in the feelings, you know, that it's a reminder. And that's what I was going through that whole time. You know, I've got these amazing people here. I've got this amazing life, you know, and yet I'm so unable to just be present, you know, and always, you know, struggling with guilt of the past and anxiety of the future. And there's no moment to be present. And I just did this 109-mile thing, you know, and it wasn't like a newfound strength. It was a surrender. Just give up. Just take care of, you know, a new understanding of what can I do? What can I take care of now? And for me, it was stop drinking, you know. And so that was the biggest thing that changed in my life from that. There was plenty of mess, you know, to clean up in my life, you know, that all stemmed from that. But but that was my experience. That's the biggest thing that comes out of it. You just had Al on, kind of touched on the same kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it's, there's such a correlation between, I would say, addictive personalities or whatever, and doing this really long stuff, or, finding your kind of connection with people. And
It's more common than I realized. When we started running events, I had no idea. You never know where the path's going to take you or what you're going to learn along the way. But there's definitely, there's a group amongst us that they've had those struggles or are having those struggles with whether it's alcohol or some other substance, depression, anxiety, you name it. There's, sometimes they'll look at the endurance as a way to channel or even just to block stuff out.
For sure.
I think in the same way that sometimes the alcohol can be the avoidance, I think sometimes the endurance event itself, that obsession with just constantly having to do more, that can also be the distraction.
Yep. 100%. Yes. And
to keep you from dealing with what you need to deal with.
And I can remember mornings waking up and going for a run, and it just felt like brutal. It was like punishment.
Yeah.
It was just, well, you deserve to feel this crappy right now.
Yeah.
And that was, building up to that. And now, there was no joy in it. Like I said, I struggled so much with the present moment. And when you've got a task at hand, like 109 miles, one step at a time, or 50 or 20, whatever it is, or, if someone's out of shape and they just need to walk around the block, and
Yeah.
the big first step is taking the first step. And
Always.
yep. And, for me, just with my personality, it just went bigger than that.
Yeah.
And
when you got past Margie, then I'm sort of curious. So your last drink was the night before Margie. You haven't had one since then.
Nope.
So after you get past the event and you get through that initial recovery, get some sleep, and you wake up and now it's time to move forward, how did you not fall back to have a drink? Like, what did you do to set yourself up so that didn't happen?
God. There's the real answer is a connection with him and a better relationship with him.
Okay.
Like I said,
how was the relationship prior to that? Not existent? Not good?
the guy said my relationship with God was like Canada. I know it's up there. It doesn't really impact me.
I've never heard it that way, but shout out to the Canadians. There's a lot of them doing our events. Interesting.
And, yes.
So did you start going to church?
I've always gone to church.
Oh, so you were going.
I knew of God. I knew of Jesus, but I didn't know him. Didn't talk to him. I can think of trying to say a prayer and not even getting like 3 sentences into it and being like, what did I just say?
Yeah.
And
who am I talking to?
Right. And like I said, the biggest thing that changed for me was he, took away that desire. It was the desire to drink. What I should say, as the first step in coping for good or bad or whatever else. So moving forward from there, I just knew it just didn't work. And I just knew, my personality, it never works at one. I was an excellent rationalizer.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Yep. To determine why I could have one, but it never ended with one. It was.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to do it, you're going to be good at it.
Correct. Right.
Even if it's drinking.
Right. So yeah. And then, I was just exhausted by it, like I said, I gave up because it was so much, it was either planning or then like regretting. And again, now, I'm thinking about the future and I'm regretting the past just nonstop. And just trying to, it was like I said, it was a removal of the desire by a higher power.
Interesting.
And it took finally, the day before Margie and, the weeks before Margie and then Margie to finally get that way. And there was a mess in life, from damage caused by that and decisions made and everything else. But all of that, I there at least daily at some point something happens. I'm like, thank God I'm not drinking.
Yeah. Once you get beyond it.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And I'm just wired differently. I know I have all kinds of friends who, they can have one or, like leave a glass at dinner, half full, and I call them weirdos, but for me, it never works that way. So just to change that, or give it up. It's not strength. It's a surrender.
Where were friends and family in this, in supporting with the addition of having a better relationship with God?
I mean, that was part of it. The people that were up there to help me for that 100 were incredible, and they were there. And I mean, they were all there to support me, and they took time out of their day to be there and be up there and to see me like determined. And I mean, they saw me as just stoic and just moving forward, and doing whatever they told me to do, or whatever else. And they probably knew there was something going on in the background, because I never let anyone in. I just kind of, kept them at bay. But I was thankful for them. And I thought, look at all these people, look at all the people that are here to help out.
These friends, how long have they been friends? Years?
Yeah. I mean, one of them is probably the longest trail running friend I've had. And then, Matt, who I mentioned, right before Margie, he did the Uri 100, and I went out to Uri to crew and pace with him. So,
are we talking 5 years, 10 years? How long have you known him?
10 years.
So in 10 years, you didn't let anybody in?
No.
Nobody got close?
No.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's good on the outside, and just keep it that way. Don't show any weakness or whatever else. And, yeah, and they, like I said, they didn't know how big of an issue it was, but there were several runs after the fact where I'm running. I'm like, hey guys, I got to tell you what happened. This is what happened up there, and.
Oh, so that's when they found out.
Sure.
Yeah. What was their reaction? Were they like, oh yeah, we knew?
Some of that, and some of, oh really? Oh, okay, that makes sense, and
yeah. Okay.
that kind of stuff back and forth. But yep.
When you were talking about that moment at the start of the 100-mile run, when you were talking about it, it kind of gave me chills, because I remember that moment. I remember standing there. I was up amongst you in that group and like talking about our shitty finish percentage and the finish rate. And I'm like, we got to do fucking better. We got to beat this. I remember that like it was yesterday, man. I just talking about it right now, right? It gives me chills again.
I know. I can feel it bubbling up in me.
Yeah. And I mean, honest to God, since that moment, because I kind of had a moment like that last year too with the 2024 folks, and just to see what the runners have been able to do in 23 and 24, and who knows what they'll do here now in 25. It's been awesome, because the finish rate was abysmal. It was not good. I don't know why, but it is fucking great to see the running community kind of wrapping their head around this thing and starting to defeat it. It's awesome. It's fucking awesome, because I've done it on a bike, haven't done it running, and I have no desire to run it. So kudos
and I have no
to
desire
guys.
to bike it. So.
It's funny how that works. So, okay, 23 was the 100-mile Margie done. What was your time?
25:36.
Okay, 25:36. It's a great time.
Yep.
It's a great time. It's fantastic.
I don't know how. I mean, like I said, I don't know how it. It was. I was so pleasantly surprised with that. I finished. I'm like, I don't know that I'll ever do another one.
Yeah.
It's just like, and
it'd be pretty hard to come back and beat that.
Don't.
I mean, at 25:36, you had a pretty flawless run.
Yeah, we had great weather. That was helpful. Like I said, it was great, and I know, but it's still there's thoughts in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certain I'll do the 100 again, But if I've got a friend coming up who's going to do the 100 next year, then I'll be up there to help with that, And
what about the out and back? Would you do that?
I would. That might be the first 200 I would ever try. But
did you follow that last year?
Yep.
That was crazy.
That
was crazy.
My buddy Matt did a 200 last November, and it was a 9-mile loop.
Oh, seriously? 200 miles of a 9-mile loop.
Yep. And like I said, all the buddies are the dominators is what we jokingly call ourselves.
Oh my God. That seems brutal.
Oh my God. Yeah. We were all down there. We had a camper down there and we took turns doing loops with him. And I mean, if I was going to try that, I don't know that I ever would, but it's gotta be, like I said,
And he got it done.
Yep.
Matt, you are a robot.
He is unbelievable. Yeah.
You are a robot. You're a Terminator.
Yep. He
That's
was up here.
ridiculous.
He did Margie, the year after I did the 50 and in between, and I was there and he did it with Zach, a local guy. They spent 36 hours together out there, and that's all part of the energy you get up of that event. So the 200, I don't know, but I could see myself doing the 100 again, but
I'm blown away by what the 200-mile runners did last year because I think only one of them didn't finish.
The biggest thing for me would be trying to navigate because
Yeah.
going backwards.
Yeah. And then Ellen came ahead of everybody like a week or two, and she ran the 200 alone. I mean, she had a support crew with her, but she couldn't be here for the actual event. So she was out there alone. No marking. None. Everything was from a Garmin or her phone or whatever she was using. Imagine that.
No. I mean, I got enough taste of that at Crusher.
And she sent me her file. I actually had her send me the files so I could kind of put the blessing on it. Like, yeah, you legit. You did it. You did it. Mm-hmm. Like you were on course. You didn't cut the course. If you did go off course, you went back to where you went off course and then continued on. And she did, man. She is something else.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's incredible. Incredible.
Yes. Yep.
I was going to ask you this earlier, and then we kind of got down the Margie rabbit hole. Where are you from? You live where?
Plymouth, Wisconsin.
Plymouth, Wisconsin. Are you a race director?
I organize a run.
Okay. What is it? Tell me about it. Because I've heard this. Either you've mentioned it or somebody told me, but I don't know. I just know enough to be dangerous.
Sure. So do it every April. Tony, who I mentioned earlier, me and him did it for the first time. There's the Kettle Moraine State Forest in Wisconsin has a couple different parts to it. There's a northern kettle and a southern kettle, and the northern kettle has a segment of Ice Age Trail in there. That's 31.6 miles long, or at least that's what the sign says at the trailhead. So we always wanted to do the northern kettle 50K, point to point.
Okay.
So we both tried it individually, and I rolled an ankle, called, quit, whatever. So finally we said, okay, we're going to do it together. We managed to, finish it together. And then we said, well, let's invite some more people. So we arranged like carpooling, to get point to point, and it just kept growing. And now we just call it the NK 50K. And
NK 50K.
Yep. Northern Kettle 50K.
Okay.
Yep. And organize it every April. And it's got a little bit of Margie to it. There's really no aid.
Okay. I respect that.
There's 3 spots where we tell people we'll have water there.
Okay.
And then there's one spot in the middle where maybe there's a little bit more aid.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever $100 can buy at Quick Trip, we'll put that up.
Yep.
And so basically, you this year you paid $13, and that got you a ride to the start, and then you're on your way home to get back. Don't really mark anything, just a couple turns and wait at the finish line. If you finish, you get a sticker that says 31.6 on it. So
do you have to permit it?
We did this year. So we kind of went under the radar for a long time.
Yeah, that's how that stuff starts.
Yep. And then it got too big, and it was our mistake. We should have done the right thing.
Yeah.
And so this year we worked with the DNR and got it permitted, and it went great. And
so how big is it now?
3 school buses full.
Okay.
So
150?
About 150.
Okay.
I think this year we had 125, and I think we had like 89 at the start or something, but the cap was like 3 buses, so about 150. So this year we did something different where with maybe 9 miles or 7 miles to go, you have to climb an observation tower, the Parnell Tower. So I told everyone there's going to be a brick at the top of the tower that they had to carry to the finish line. So
that's a great area in the kettles.
Yep.
I haven't been in the south unit too much, but I've backpacked a lot in the north kettles. And it's fantastic. It really is. It's beautiful. You got all the, is it lean-tos or?
Yeah, like Adirondack shelters, I think.
Yeah, the Adirondack shelters. God, if somebody's out there and they haven't been in that area and they're a backpacker or they don't mind trying it, I highly recommend it.
Yep.
It is awesome.
Yeah, the icy trail there's pretty gnarly too. I mean, rocks and roots and stuff. It's fun.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so this year, like it was fun. I mean, I'm sure you get this all the time, but I would get emails saying, so there's really no aid. Mm-hmm. There'll be some water, no. And I literally just say, expect no help.
Do you get any blowback on that? Do you get any pushback? Like, what's wrong with you?
A little bit.
Yeah. And what's your response?
It's $13.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I don't get it anymore because now, the gig is well understood. People know we're not going to help, but there's probably somebody out there that will. Mm-hmm. But in the beginning, it was like, I don't even get really emotionally tied up in it. If somebody comes in and bitches about it, it's like, listen, we're very clear communicators. We're telling you up front what the rules of engagement are. I'm not hiding anything from you. And now you need to make a choice. If you don't like it, I don't give a shit. Go do something else. Like, there's no judgment. Mm-hmm. But for people, I don't understand why people come in and they feel like you should have to accommodate them. Right. Everybody feels like they need or deserve to be accommodated. All we're offering is an opportunity. If this isn't an opportunity you want to partake in, then go find a different opportunity. We're not judging anybody. We're not trying to be mean to anybody, but we're being very clear about what we are and what we're not, and take it or leave it.
I mean, the whole idea is to keep it, like a fat ass run is like the term, that you hear sometimes of just get together and run. Mm-hmm. That's what the whole idea was. Yeah. And for this one, it's minimal. It's minimal. And I'm always amazed. I mean, it's not an easy course, and I'm always amazed at how many people, it's the first time they've ever tried something like that and they come and do it. But they don't realize, maybe how hard it could be. So they're kind of going in fresh and, okay, these are the parameters and I'm going to do it. So
what's the finish rate? Any idea? Pretty good.
This year, like I said, we had 89 start. I think we had 80 finish.
Oh, that's good.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
And we promise we're going to be there when you finish.
So what can we do to make the finish rate lower? What can we scheme to get it down to about 50%?
Well, going back to the bricks, I literally said that there were going to be bricks at the top of a tower, and what they were Lego bricks.
Oh, okay.
But we had people at the bottom like, is he really going to make us carry a brick to the finish? And I don't want it that bad. I'm not going to do it. And then they get up and there's a Lego brick up there. So the whole idea was that every finisher brings a Lego brick, and then puts it on it, makes a tower out of it, and then the last finisher that's the only award we give. Is the tower that all the finishers make.
Cool.
For the last finish.
That's a cool idea.
Yep.
So the brick idea has come up in Marji Gesick talk, the group, and I just want to be very clear so everybody understands. If we bring bricks to Margie, it's a full-on regulation masonry brick for building a house. No Legos.
No Legos.
So if you want bricks, if you suggested bricks, you better be careful what you wish for.
Bowling balls, wasps.
Wasps, hornets. Mm-hmm. All right. So I heard you say chiropractic school.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you must be a chiropractor.
I'm a chiropractor. Yes.
All right. How long have you been doing that?
Graduated in 2006. So whatever the math is there, 19 years.
Okay.
Almost 19 years.
So
18 years. Because it was December.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yes.
Obviously, I think there's a lot of opinions about chiropractic medicine. Do you think should a person have to go to the chiropractor weekly their entire life?
No.
So is it something like when you have a patient come in or a client come in, whatever the naming convention is, are you trying to get this person to a point where they don't need you?
Well, yes and no. Yep, I would love to render myself obsolete and have everyone completely healthy, but that's not,
Well, that's probably never going to happen, right?
Right.
There's always going to be people that probably, for one reason or another, need it.
Sure. So chiropractic kind of is based on the idea that your body is self-healing and self-regulating.
Okay.
So and you have this innate power, that heals a cut, or
Yep.
heals a bone, whatever else. You don't have to think about it. It happens.
Yes.
And that self-healing, self-regulating power in your body is directed by your nervous system. So nervous system, brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves, every cell, tissue, and organ has nerves going to it and coming from it to provide information. And your body, it is run by that. So what chiropractic can do is help enhance that function. So
Ooh, crusher term. He's
enhance it.
experienced,
Now,
but in
good
an
way.
actual good way.
Yes. Correct. Yes. Yeah. So, I don't see anyone who has, in my office, no one has to be there. When they come in, it's okay. What are your goals?
Yeah.
You just want to be able to walk without a limp, or, do you want a quality of life that's better?
Right.
So, the big goal for me, my mission, my
Yeah.
office is enhanced quality of life. And quality of life is directly dependent on your personal independence, right?
Yep.
How much you can take care of yourself, move
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
Personal independence is directly related to your body's own mobility. Okay? And then your body's mobility starts with your muscles and joints.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where adjustments or muscle work or, can help with that.
What's the most common thing that somebody comes in for?
Neck pain, headaches, low back pain, that kind of stuff.
And what are the common causes of those things?
Either too much or too little movement. If every joint has a certain amount of mobility that it should have.
Yeah.
And if it's not moving enough, then it can start to break down.
Okay.
Okay. And if it's moving way too much, then it's going to get worn out.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to determine, anytime there's one joint that isn't moving enough, then another joint in your body is compensating for that and probably doing more than it should.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just you have to figure out which ones aren't moving, which ones are. And often, where the pain is not necessarily where the underlying problem is. So to say what caused it, I always ask people, so do you have a good story to tell me? And 9 times out of 10, I don't know. One guy last week, I forgot my phone inside. So I stopped in my driveway to turn around and then I felt it go, So
You said where the pain isn't always where the problem is.
Correct.
Right. So it's referring from somewhere else or.
Yep. Or,
That makes sense.
Yep. Often knees, knees are hinge joints,
Yeah.
but if your ankle is off a little bit or your, foot goes out a little bit, now you're putting some torque on that knee. So your knee might start wearing down, but it has nothing to do with your knee. It might be your hip or your ankle or someplace else.
Do you deal at all with anybody that's dealing with like golfer's elbow?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Hey, I'm literally that I just dropped that out there to try to help you. You need to talk to him when we're done here.
Golfer's elbow, tennis elbow.
Yes,
and again,
both. Yes.
It's something called a repetitive strain.
We're gonna move. We'll take everything off the table over there. We're just gonna slap him down on the stomach, and you go to work.
Maybe off of this table onto that one.
Yes.
But there's repetitive strain disorders.
Yeah.
And a trauma can be a car accident, one big whiplash, or it can be, always, because your monitor's over here when you're sitting at your computer all day.
Yep. Yeah.
The big thing, one thing I always tell people is, we're born in a fetal position, and then eventually we get nice and tall, and then over time we just start going back the other way. And,
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. And I like to try and fight gravity as much as possible and help other people do that.
So ideally, as a chiropractor, you would endeavor to to help somebody find a way to be self-supported.
100%. Make them responsible for their health more.
Yeah.
Rather than say, okay, this hurts, here's a pill.
Yeah.
Every time you take a pill, you're going to need to take 2 more or whatever else. So,
right. Oh yeah.
so if I can
the
work
side effects.
Right. People with, I always say everyone I see gets exercises to do on their own,
Yeah.
to try and counteract whatever they're doing regularly.
Yeah.
Exercises, nutrition, whatever your body's, what you're giving your body are the nutrients that it uses to heal itself and then movement.
Mm-hmm.
And adjustments.
Do chiropractors? Do you end up writing scripts of any type?
No,
I didn't think so. I had shoulder surgery back in December. The shoulder, and they were great. It was my wife's office. They're fantastic. They had asked if I wanted physical therapy. Going through the whole the spiel before surgery, and I'm like, I'll roll the dice and not take therapy initially, right? So I go through surgery, get it done. I got a few weeks down the road. I'm like, it was fine. I was working through it. I was working out. I was going to the gym. But I'm like, maybe I should go talk to somebody. So I had Stacy make me an appointment to go in to see one of their physical therapists. I can't remember her name. Very, very kind. She was great to talk to. But I went in to see her in the morning, and I was very direct. I'm like, listen, I have one goal today. And she said, well, what's that? I said, I don't want to see you again. So you need to tell me what I need to do. Yeah, like what's the deficiency? What's going on here? I'm all ears, and I'm willing to execute the solution. I don't want to see you again. Mm-hmm. We went through that. It was probably an hour that I was there. Basically, it was some rear deltoid work that needed to be done. Like I was really strong up front, chest and shoulders, but deficient in the rear deltoid and a couple other spots. So really worked diligently on that the last few months, and problem solved.
Yep.
You know, you gotta be willing to put the time in.
Correct.
Identify what the issue is and fix it.
People ask, okay, no, once I'm feeling better, I want to, stick with it. We do a maintenance care. And the majority of people I see in a day they don't have symptoms. They're just there to stay healthy,
Interesting.
And, I said, that's individual. I've got one person I see 3 times a week. That's what she wants, and I've got some people every 2 weeks, my parents included, but then other people are just get it, get my arm so it's not a 9 out of 10 pain wise.
Your parents come see you.
Yeah.
What are their names?
Jerry and Monica.
Jerry and Monica. Shout out to Jerry and Monica. Where are they from? They over in Plymouth too?
They're in Plymouth. Yep.
Is that where you grew up?
Yep.
So you've lived there your whole life?
Pretty much. Besides college and
chiropractic. Yeah. Where did you go off to college?
Lacrosse.
Ah, we have an adventure team in lacrosse.
Yes, I saw the trailer outside.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, good reminder. We got to get that down there. Randy's going to be calling me asking where the hell's my trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been Plymouth basically my whole life. Besides, obviously, I bought the office I own is in Kiel. So
how big is Plymouth?
8,000.
Okay. I think I've been through it. I thought it seemed a little small or smaller. Interesting. Let's talk Crusher. You did the mass start last year for the first time, right?
Mm-hmm. First time I've ever done Crusher or anything. Yep.
Yeah. And we ended up having that route that started and ended at Lake and Land. Mm-hmm. Went out, enhanced gravel. I had said before you guys did it, I'm like, this is probably, aside from, I'd say this was the most legitimate enhanced gravel course that we had put out last year, because it was a great combination of like road, gravel, and then single track, which actually was a lot of North Country trail, right?
Yeah. Not trail. I mean, there's also that.
So talk about that, because I'm really interested to hear how this went.
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, the Crusher was harder than the Margie 50.
Isn't that interesting? This has been his story since he did it last year. Mm-hmm. So for anybody, that is aware of Margie and how hard it is, I mean, that's saying something, that the Crusher Not Fun Run last year, the 50 mile for the mass start, was harder.
I absolutely think it was.
Wow.
And
was it the navigation? Was it the physicality, the ruggedness? What was it?
Yes.
Everything?
All of it. The remoteness, the navigation. I mean, I put a lot of work into that, I mean, I remember checking my email. When is he going to drop the points and everything, and all that stuff. And I mean, the deer flies were biblical.
Biblical. Good word.
Unbelievable. So yeah, Crusher, we started. The only downside was we weren't with everyone else.
Yes.
We were Lake and Land.
Yeah, you were off on a little runner island.
Yes. I mean, so for me, the hardest part was, the navigation, that's the first time I'd ever put anything on my watch.
What are you using there? What watch is that?
A Garmin Fenix 6.
Okay. And it did a good job with the navigation?
Yep.
You would do it again?
Absolutely.
And have you used that for Margie?
Yes.
Okay. So Fenix 6.
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to point it out what it is, because we get a lot of questions about runner's equipment, and I don't run.
I bought it for Margie because I knew I needed something with a bigger battery life, but I didn't use the GPX for the Margie 100.
Okay.
But I did obviously for Crusher.
Yeah, because there's no signage.
Right. Nothing. So it's just like this whole, a lot of people get worried about signs for Margie and stuff. Well, Crusher, it takes it to a whole new level. And
yeah,
so for me, the tough parts of Crusher were, I mean, a lot of it, was runnable because you're on gravel roads and stuff.
Yeah.
And you think, it's still beautiful. You know, I mean, it's beautiful where you are and stuff. And I mean, I literally panicked, you know, at the deer fly issue, you know, that I knew that spray on wasn't going to work. We found some lotion to actually put on, you know, and I did that. So they were just always around me, but not landing, thankfully.
What was the lotion? Don't know.
Insect repellent lotion. Yeah.
But it was literally like a thick lotion, and that's what you used
Absolutely.
to keep them off you.
Correct.
You didn't use any of this silly double-sided tape that the cyclists use?
Because then I have that stuff.
You didn't have like a dragonfly on a wire?
That. Yeah. And all that did was whenever I tried that thing, it just hit the branches that I was playing. I did look at all of these options though, but the lotion was great. But I mean, I'll get to that at some point. But I mean, it was a beautiful course, you know, and my poor crew, Clinton and Matt and Jackie, they were in like
Head nets,
waiting for me, you know, and stuff. I mean, it was crazy, but the course was, like I said, it was beautiful. I'm moving good. I'm trying not to move too fast because I know it's a full day, you know, and it's getting hot and stuff. And I think Whitefish Falls is when I was starting to feel it, you know.
And you had a ways to go yet.
Yep, for sure.
At that point.
Yep, and there's no cell service at all.
No.
So like the crew can't see where I am. You know, it's not reporting anything. I got through Whitefish Falls and stuff, and then I remember, okay, well, they're not going to see me for a while, you know, until like almost Silver Falls, I think. I mean, there because you know there's roads on a map, but none of the roads.
They're not really there.
They're not there. Correct. So
the term road is it's open to interpretation in the UP.
To say the least, yes.
Might have been a road.
Was a road.
Was a road.
Back in the day.
Depends on how big of the vehicle you have, I guess.
Right.
The road.
Exactly.
But so then, like, okay, I'm going to put earbuds in. And I never run with not earbuds, but shocks or whatever. I never run with anything on, like during races. I do training, but I put them in because, okay, it's going to be a while. And we're onto the North Country Trail, which I missed the turn first because the grass is so tall, you know, coming off the road. There's where the North Country Trail goes. And I happen to see like the little brown rectangle sign or whatever, you know, and
the marker.
Right. So, oh, I got to go in there, you know? So I start walking through and you can't even see your feet. So at least you didn't send the bikes through there, did you?
No,
okay.
No.
That was terrible. And so I'm finally getting, I mean, like I said, the reason I bring up this shocks is I get to this point where, like the trail is obviously going to the right, you know, and the GPX file says go straight into nothing.
You and I, we talked about this through email.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm going to follow, you know, I'm going to follow my watch and follow the GPX file. So,
You might get disqualified if you don't.
Correct. Yes. So I leave and not far into that. I mean, it's I took pictures of it. The grass is up to here. And now I'm not just in grass. Now I'm going into like streams, you know?
Yep.
And I get beyond the second stream, you know, and suddenly my shocks start breaking up. They're not connecting to my phone. And I realize that my phone is now not in my pocket. So now I'm panicking because I don't know where I am. You know, and I know that I'm off of what looks like a trail. So if I go back and I can't find my phone, do I just follow that trail out someplace? And I knew my crew can't find me, you know, and somehow I turn around and go back through the first stream, you know, and I didn't hear my phone fall out, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I didn't hear a kerplunk, you know, so I'm thinking maybe there's a chance. And sure, I get through the second stream, nothing. And I must not have like closed the zipper when I was at that, you know, decision point to follow the trail or go off into Todd world. And sure enough, I see it, you know, off to the side in the tall grass and grab it. And man. Yeah. So keep going again. Lucky. 100% lucky. Yep. 100% lucky. I had my headphones in, you know, I had someone looking out for me.
Something to trigger you so you knew the phone was not there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Otherwise, I have no idea how far I would have gone.
Yeah.
Yes. So I went back and get that, and then I get through that, and so the crew is like in the middle of nowhere. I mean, somewhere near Silver Falls, and they come in, and the trail goes both ways, and they don't know where I am. So Clinton goes one way, Matt goes the other. I am I'm irate, not happy, and everything. And actually, Pete Senkbeil was coming through at that exact same time, and
Was he?
stopped at our truck, and he was like, "I'm done." He was done. He wasn't done. He finished, which is amazing. But at that point, I didn't see him or anything.
Pete's done that before.
Right. But I didn't see him or anything, but that was happening right there too. And I come out and I just tell him, you would not believe what happened.
He would believe it because he's been put through the paces.
Right. But I'm telling you, Matt and Clinton that, and it's just, and anyway, get together. Okay, let's refocus here. Go to Silver Falls. I just sit down there and just take a breath. And Matt actually took a picture of me. It's one of my favorite pictures, and I took a selfie and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is pretty cool.
That's a good spot.
That is a good spot. When would I ever be there?
You would not.
Nope. I don't even know how I have no idea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's beautiful and just a great spot. And so then we get going, okay, get refreshed. Then I think we come through like whatever town it is. We're back on roads. And then soon enough, we're back on the North Country Trail. And now all I want to do is take a nap. And I've never wanted to nap in a race. Like I mentioned it, Margie, but I didn't. And now, I mean, the crusher has crushed me. I'm exhausted. And and here I'm thinking, I got to be close to single digits left, but I really don't know, and we get into the North Country Trail again. And like I said, it's not a trail. It's like a route, and I mean, it's so lumpy and you can't even walk it like regularly,
There's really not much of a tread.
No. It's like rotting logs with moss over the top.
Yes.
And like bowling balls and.
Yeah, that's the section that you're talking about right now that you were in.
Yes.
Yeah, that's over kind of, I think, in the area like Magnum Road, or at least some of it by Magnum is like that. Did you end up going over? I'm pretty sure we did that. We sent you over this. Was there like 100-foot boardwalk?
Yes.
Yeah, that's through the Jeski Swamp.
Yeah.
They just built that 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, we're in the North Country and they were ahead and they came in to find me because I'm moving real slow at this point.
Yeah.
And just thinking if I have 8 miles left, that's going to be another like 3 hours right now. And I just couldn't move. You can't run it. You can barely walk it. And there's a bench at one point and I'm talking about how I just want to lay down and I remember Clinton going, that isn't there. It's not there. There's no, it's right there. I really want to, no, it's not there. And finally get to my truck and I'm like, just give me 5 minutes. And I lay down in the bed of the truck and put my head down the first time. I sent you that picture, the first time I've ever tried to sleep during a race ever. And I can't because the deer flies are just around me the whole time. And sure enough, I get up, Red Bull and ibuprofen, which I never do either, but I did that and rebound, and
you're off and running.
Off
and walking.
Yeah, I was running though. Yep. And I moved good. We went through the sand and then finish line, and that like I said, it was harder than Margie. And the remoteness of it was something I don't forget, and
yeah, so contrast that. Talk about that a little bit. You got Margie, which it has this reputation, rightfully so, but it's not remote.
No.
I mean, you're a mile or two from being able to roll into town or civilization at any time that you want. Quitting is easy. And there's lots of people. So you're not really alone. Versus Crusher, which is very remote. Like so remote, a lot of the times you don't even have a cell service or cell signal. So communication a lot of times is not even an option. It doesn't have that huge outpouring of support at the same level Margie does. They're two totally different experiences.
Yep.
I think. How do you compare the two? Like, do you have one way or the other that you prefer it or like it?
I would agree that they're totally different. I mean, I can't imagine trying to crush her without experiencing Margie, just because I didn't, but I mean, I'm definitely, I wish I could do Crusher this year again.
Yeah.
It would be one of those things where, okay, every year I'm coming up here and I'm taking on whatever you come up with, and that's the other neat thing is it changes,
Yeah.
So it's not the same thing every year, but yeah, the remoteness of it was just different. It was hot. You're sweaty.
Yeah.
Like I said, the deer flies are mosquitoes. It's unbelievable, but it's also beautiful. And I didn't think it'd be as pretty as Margie, but it's a little bit more open, like I said. But even the gravel road, you're just just remembering where you are, and it's so hard to get away from cell service,
Yep.
And the Margie's kind of it's technical the whole time and everything else, so it's different in that way. But in terms of running, the Crusher had more runnable, but it ended up then you beat yourself up a little bit sooner.
Yep.
And it was amazing. It was good. I'm trying to think of how to explain like the difference or whatever else, or the remoteness of it, but you can see how people would seek that out, and
Yeah, there's a different level. I think you have to have a higher level of comfort in the backcountry. Like you have to have a more developed, broader set of skills if you're going to do that a lot. Crusher, I'm talking, where you're putting yourself into situations where you're isolated and alone. Even if you have a support crew, I think you still you should go, not that people do this, but I think you should continuously be planning or thinking worst case scenario. And worst case scenario is your crew can't communicate with you, cannot find you, right? I know there's been a few people who that is the one thing they didn't anticipate, and that ended up being their undoing. That's why they quit or didn't get it done. But you do have to be more sure of your ability. And I think the skill set needs to be a little more diverse because, I mean, you've had to start a fire during Crusher out on the Pashiki to warm people up, right?
Yeah, I have out on Dishno.
Yeah, I mean, well, at Margie, there's, in the middle of the night, you might run into the aid station at Cedar Lake and they probably have a fire going, right? You don't have to have the ability and understanding how to do that yourself. Whereas in the Crusher, that experience Mark had with his group, having to start a impromptu fire on the side of the road to warm people up because they're freezing to death, other people had to do that. It's, I don't know that your average person running around town right now today in Marquette could bust out a fire without some serious struggle.
right.
Because it's not something that our day-to-day life really requires. But Crusher requires that of you.
Yep.
If you don't want to be put into a really bad spot and end up in trouble. That's what I love about Crusher.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of spot, I had a spot tracker and it didn't work.
Yeah.
From almost immediately, it wasn't working. So.
Oh, one of ours.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, we had no idea where the hell you were.
So I mean, and I was thinking about that. At least I had this because I don't know what if I didn't have my watt, but I don't know. But
do you own an InReach?
No.
No. You have one, right? Or did you sell it?
I have one.
Yeah. We both have one. I've had really good luck with those. The nice thing with those is they can connect to the service, like track leaders, or at the worst case scenario is that your family still has access to your map and nobody else has that unless you make it public. Those, the InReaches are nice. And I think that the Mini 2, I have the Mini 1, which was good. It works. It had its own little nuance where when it came unplugged from an external battery, it would shut down. That was kind of a pain in the ass. I think they fixed that through some firmware updates. But the new InReach 2 Mini, I think, is a pretty good piece of equipment from what I've heard. I'd recommend having one, especially if you're going to keep doing Crusher stuff. Yeah, they're sweet. And you can run everything from the app. Texting and stuff. So whether you have service or not, you can text your people.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And send pin drops and shit. Yeah, it's awesome. How long did it take you to do that Crusher course?
Well, I thought for sure I would do it faster than the Margie 50, and it took me longer.
No kidding.
Yep. It was over 13 hours. Yeah,
God,
that
that really does blow me away.
Yeah.
Because you factor in that there's some gravel roads in there and you'd think that you'd make better time, but I don't think you do.
Nope. I mean, the gravel roads were at the beginning, from what I can remember. But I mean, like I said, the points that stick out were the Beaver Dam, or whatever that was, Silver Falls, and then the North Country Trail was something else. So
Did we have you go down? I'm trying to remember the course. When you're over by Laughing Whitefish Falls, did you go down the switchbacky, climb down toward the river?
I don't think so.
No, so we sent you over on top of the falls. Okay. How many miles of single track do you think were in that thing, if you were to guess? Do you remember?
15,
And what was the total
Maybe.
distance on it?
59.
Oh, it did end up at 59. 50-mile not fun run that's 60 miles long.
Correct.
Oh, man. I remember before that became understood when I still have people who are new, they'll get the GPX file and they'll email me and they'll be like, hey, I think you sent me the wrong file. This thing's like 10 miles longer. And I'm like, no, that's the right file, bro. And then they're like, what? I signed up for 40. And I said, yes, you did.
Correct.
That is correct.
These are free.
You're not paying for those bonus miles.
Right.
Well, you will, but just not monetarily.
Yep.
So funny.
Yeah, that was it's vivid in my memory, and like I said, Clinton, who was there with me, is like, yeah, that intrigues him for sure, and that's the neatest thing about it. Is just come up and see it, or try it or whatever else, and just try. I mean, if you've got something, you can figure it out. There's enough people out there willing to help you try and get ready or whatever else, but just to take that first step. And
What part of it intrigues him? Clinton?
the remoteness of it.
No, the remoteness of it. I don't think you can beat that.
No.
I think there's something that's wired within us that kind of longs for that. Not everybody. I mean, there's some people who are very domesticated and they have no interest. I mean, like going to Sugarloaf would be the deepest level of adventure they can handle anymore, which is unfortunate. But I know for me, and I know for you too, like getting out there in Crusher Land, there ain't nothing better than that.
Deeper the better, yeah.
Yeah, the further away from it all, the better.
Yeah, I like to think about spots where there's no real sense that humans have ever been.
At least not for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like you're talking about North Country Trail during Adventurous over on the west end of the UP. When you come out of the Porcupine Mountain State Park, there's no good way to get across further west. So we identified the North Country Trail.
Yeah, into Black River.
Yeah. That would bring us to the falls over there, Black River. And I remember the first time we did that with Chuck in 2020. We went through there. It was just getting dark. I'll never forget it. And I tease you about this every time we get on this damn story. It's dusk, it's going to start getting dark. And Mark fucked us because he's like, yeah, we should be there in a couple hours. Shouldn't be that bad. Take the trail across, no big deal. It wasn't that far. I don't remember how many miles it was.
About 5.
5 miles. Okay. How many fucking hours did it take us to get through there?
It was double that.
It was easily
5 hours.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours through the dark, ravine after ravine after ravine. There was no trail. I don't know who the fuck said there's a North Country Trail in there. That person's a liar, straight up liar. I've got a picture of him and Chuck side by side, looking out toward the falls, pitch black, fucking 11 o'clock or whatever it was. And all you see is, the back of their head and nothing else, just utter blackness. God, that was fucking crazy in there. It was great though.
Yep.
It's just great. I mean, I don't know. We had some good weather during that trip, but actually not a lot of it. But it's the bad stuff that you end up remembering. It's the hard stuff that you reflect on and you laugh about later every time. What's your big stuff this year? Have we talked about this year?
Ure 100.
That's what it is. Because I think, is that the conflict with Crusher?
Yep.
Okay, that's
Same weekend.
So what is that? Talk me through that, because you've said it, but I don't know what it is.
Sure. So it's a 102-mile run. It's in Ure, Colorado, which is in the San Juan Mountains, southwest corner.
Okay.
It's got 42,000 feet of elevation gain.
That's a lot. What's the highest you get in elevation?
13.8.
Okay, so you're going to be into some thin air.
Yep.
How much of a player is the elevation for people?
Yeah. Well, I think I think the biggest player is weather.
Okay.
A lot of people, from what I've read and heard, I mean, a lot of people get stuck in an aid station because they can't go back over a pass because of lightning,
Makes sense.
everything coming over.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's the factor for me. I'm going to get out there a week before and just do my best with the elevation.
Yeah, try to acclimate a little bit. Yeah.
And I mean, it's just climbing.
Is it single track or is it fire road or both?
There's a little bit of, both. Mostly, single track. Mostly. There's one big road that's kind of like the main road out of town that you hit all these peaks.
Yeah.
They describe the course as like a shattered windshield, because it's just like a crack, and then you just keep going up. There's a high peak, go up there, and at the top you got to punch your bib, prove you were there, and then you come back down, and you go up the next one, and
so you're going up like to a point back to the course?
Yep. Well, yeah. So like you start in downtown Ouray at a park, and the first thing you do is climb like 5,000 feet.
Okay.
And you go up one spot, punch your bib, come back
down.
then go to the next spot, go up, and then you go over the top of a pass.
Yep.
And then you come back that way. There's one area where there's a loop you do twice, and then you come back down, and then the last two climbs are, the last climb is up to what's called Chief Ouray Mine, which is incredible. I think it's about 3 miles up and 3,000 feet vertical gain. And then the last one, you go to Bridge of Heaven, which is 5 miles and 5,000 feet up. Punch your bib, come back down.
God, I've never heard of this. Have you heard of this?
So the real, in ultra running, there's the Hard Rock 100, which is,
I've heard of that.
yeah, most people, if you've heard of that one's just really hard to get into.
Okay.
There's a lottery, and it's really hard, but it's the same area. I mean, the Hard Rock course is a loop, and one of the cities they go through is Ouray. And some guy that you would probably get along with and share a lot in common with decided, let's make a race in Ouray that, let's put this thing together.
Let's make it terrible.
And my buddy Matt did it. It was the hardest thing I went out and paced him and crewed him. And it was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life until Margie 100.
Oh, pacing him.
Yes.
Wow. Has Matt or any of your buddies, have they done any 200s?
Matt did the 200.
Oh, the 200, the lap or the loop.
Yep.
Anybody done like Bigfoot or any of those other big 200s that are
Matt's
out west?
The big ones. He did Mogollon Monster, which is a big one out west. He's been out west a couple times, but Ouray's the biggest one. It took him 47 hours and 58 minutes.
Wow.
Yep.
47.
And I was with him at the end, and he dropped me as he was running back into town. I couldn't
Really?
keep up with him. Yep.
While you were pacing him.
Yeah. He was pacing me, apparently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The pacing thing, explain that to me. Why is that a thing in ultra running?
Well, I think more than anything, especially in stuff like that, it's for safety. Make sure you're staying on course and you've got someone there with you, because they say like there's pacers and then there's mulers.
Yep.
And a mule means you're carrying everything for them. And
right.
That's like at Ouray, you can't mule,
yeah.
But you can pace, meaning you can have someone with you for the last 50 miles.
Yeah.
And now some events don't allow pacers, and others allow it earlier. So it's kind of a variable, but I don't know. For me, it kind of brings more of a team effort into it, know, and I mean, Ouray was the most beautiful place I think I've ever been on earth, outside of the Seguin Swamp, obviously.
That's fantastic in there.
But yeah, I mean, so going out there with him was unbelievable, and it made me, I was like, okay, I want to, what's the hardest possible thing I could try? Let's try that.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. I look forward to hearing how that goes. The pacer thing's interesting to me. Would you say that most ultras do allow it or don't? Or is it 50-50?
I'd say do.
Do?
The longer ones. I mean, I don't think there's any pacers like at a 50K or even really a 50 mile. I don't think there are.
And you think the primary reason for that is safety?
Yes.
To keep the person on course.
On course and moving, I think.
And moving.
So
do you think that it's, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it because I can't imagine as a cyclist requiring a pacer per se. So I'm wondering, why would it be different? Is it just culturally part of the ultra running culture or the scene? Like somewhere along the line it just started and then it just became a thing?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, when the first guy who ran 100 miles, it was a horse event and his horse came up lame. So he said, I can do it on my feet. So, I mean, so it started just as a solo thing, but
Say that again. Explain it again. Say that again. That's how ultra running started?
well, and now I'm not like a perfect historian,
Yeah.
but there's a guy named Gordy Ainsley
Okay.
who happened to be a chiropractor also, but he did this event called the Tevis Cup, which was in California.
Okay.
It was something like Squaw Valley to Auburn, or something, California. And it was a horse event,
Okay.
You rode a horse and it's in valleys and mountains and everything else. And sometimes you get off the horse and you let the horse pull you up or whatever, make it easy on the horse. But his horse came up lame. So as the story goes that I'm aware of, he said, well, I bet I can do it. And I can, beat the cutoffs on foot. So he did 100 miles.
So you just left the horse there?
Well, yeah. I guess the horse, he just did it on his own. It was like a bet or whatever. And then,
Oh man.
I think that's where it started.
Wow.
Like
Yeah, I just like my thought, and maybe this is the caveman biker in me. I'm thinking like, if an ultra runner can't go out and keep themselves on course and take care of themselves, then maybe they shouldn't be out there until they can.
yeah.
That's my take. But now you keep in mind, all the runners out there, don't get all butthurt. I'm saying that because as an organization, our intention is to make people independent and self-supported.
Right.
Not dependent on me, not dependent on you, not dependent on Mark. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the goal. We want kids to be independent, confident, not to be under somebody's thumb or finger all the time, and being, to not feel like they have to have somebody.
Yeah.
If you have somebody, great. But if you don't, you're okay. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's always been kind of a head scratcher. And we did allow pacers in the beginning because I was told, well, that's the way they do it. And I was like, all right, whatever. We didn't have that many runners at that time anyway.
Yeah.
But the first email I got that was like, this pacer wasn't a pacer, they were a mule. And I'm like, all right, we're out of this. Like, I'm not here to play referee,
right,
to determine what a pacer is or isn't. And, they should be able to self-manage themselves honorably. Mm-hmm. So we just killed the pacer.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I don't, they're not necessary. And I know there are a lot of people, I'm doing this all on my own.
Yeah. I respect that.
There's an event called the Plain 100 and it's out maybe Wyoming or something. And they barely have aid stations, so it's in Plain, Wyoming is the name of the town, but then it's also the whole idea is, you're just out there.
Like PLAIN?
Correct.
Plain, Wyoming.
Yep. Or someplace
name.
out west. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's that 100 is that there are strict rules in place. And
Do they allow neutral sport?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yep.
So they literally have to go out and be fully self-supported with everything they need.
I believe so.
Yeah. We'll have to look that up. We got to look that up. Can you make a note on Plain 100, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I love hearing about events like that, just to look at maybe what they're doing, just to see. I think those events are good because that stuff is going to take people outside their comfort zone.
Sure.
Big time. You mentioned that you liked the fact that the courses change. Mm-hmm. Why do you like it, or what do you like about it? We're talking about our courses because I guess Margie can't change a ton. Mm-hmm. What we can change, or what Ramba can change, they do. But Polar Roll and Crusher, we are always striving to change those, especially the EX routes. So what do you like about it?
I mean, I've only done the Crusher, this past year, so I haven't done like multiple courses, but I mean, I would come back and do the course I did, but the idea of like going up to the Keweenaw, and having, and having to figure out a new puzzle up there. Yeah. That sounds intriguing to me. That it's just always the idea is the same. Yep. But now go do it up here. Go take this new challenge and see something new.
Right. I understand why the majority of races don't change the course because it's easier. That it just flat out is, it's really hard to change the courses as much as we do because you're duplicating your work year after year after year. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's been really cool because we've been able to introduce people to a lot of different unique areas up here. We'd spent a lot of time we've been in the Keweenaw. We haven't spent a ton of time up there. We've been up there years ago. So some people have seen it up there, the Crusher over in that EX territory between like Marquette and Lance through the Huron Mountains. There's a lot up there to see that people would not get to see if we weren't putting these routes together. Mm-hmm. When we ran it over toward Munising, that was cool. It's a new area. It's not as rugged or burly. I'm talking for the bike part of it, but a new area nonetheless, new things to prepare for. The thing that Munising area really had is sand. So if people have complained about sand in other areas of the Crusher, but it's legit over in Munising. But it's cool because from an organizational standpoint, we can show people new areas, take them places they wouldn't be able to go without us doing this. And more importantly, it keeps it interesting because you can't get into what I call like racer boy or racer girl mode, where now it's just the same course every year.
Right.
And it's just like figuring out how to take minutes. To me, then I get that that's something that some people love to do and like to do, and I think that they should do it. But I don't know. After a while, I don't know what you get from it, for me personally.
Right.
That's why I stopped doing it. Mm-hmm. I love the adventure idea of seeing new shit and being challenged with different obstacles, crossing a river.
Right.
Shit like that. That's fun.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's just, otherwise, I don't know. There's obviously one person's definition of adventure might differ from another's. But I don't think that every adventure is necessarily adventure. For me, at least. There has to be certain parameters for it to be referred to as an adventure for me.
Yep. I have this, these cards that I have, and I'll send them out, as thank yous or whatever else. In the front is like this flow chart of, was it a good adventure? Uh-huh. And it's by this artist. He goes by Semi-Rad, is his name. But but everything is, did you see a bear? Yes, cool. Did it eat you? No. Then and everything ultimately comes back to, did you die?
Right.
And if you did not
die,
I've
seen this.
Then it was a good adventure.
Yep. I actually think I've seen it. That might be on my on a cabinet in my office at home.
Sure. Yep. And
it's hilarious.
My kids, they literally. But did you die? Did I? They call me. But did you die? No, I did not. Okay, then it was a good adventure. They know that part. So,
kids, how old are your kids?
Eddie is 14. He'll be 15 soon. Estelle is 13, and Emmerin is 8.
So, where does adventure fit into their life and their world? What are they doing?
Eddie is he's a runner, way more talented than I could ever be as a runner. He's cross country. He's in track right now. He plays soccer, basketball. He does all of it. He will be up here doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm certain of that. He came up for polar roll, saw some of that. He, asks about, he's very interested. Estelle has a horse.
Okay.
Amazing. She's incredible too. She's the optimist, in terms of being a crew person and stuff. And then Emmerin is just all over the place. She's 8. She's almost like a mascot, and she's hilarious. But when it comes to adventure, I love getting them out to do that stuff, and trying to model, it too. Like, this was hard, and this is why, and
so they've been part of your crew.
Yep, a little bit. Eddie, Eddie's been out there. Marquette, he ran a couple miles with me, and stuff, and saw me puking my guts out. He's seen plenty. They'll be going out to Ouray, so they'll get a big taste of it there. But I've always, I always wanted. It goes back to what I was saying before about not needing to be present. Like I always had to have an activity for them, and I wanted to do the activity. Whether it was camping. Camping in a tent or doing whatever else. But I always struggled with actually just being there and enjoying it. I was always planning the activity, and then once it was over, I'd missed out on all the fun in it. But, but getting them out doing that stuff is what I love. I mean, I just love seeing them grow and seeing them do hard stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And we were out in Colorado last year, and I can remember we did a hike to a waterfall, and at one point the girls were not doing good, you know, and I said, Eddie, can you go back to the truck and go get water and then run it back up to us,
Yep.
you know, and give him that, figure out how to get there. Here are the keys, and get him back. And, you know, and then just seeing, you know, like I can think of hiking up a mountain, seeing Estelle, you know, just have to be like, you know, just stop, take a breath, look around and see where you are, and take advantage of, be present in that moment.
Yeah. Take an inventory of the moment.
Correct. I was just talking to them this week, and I think it was Estelle. She learned in school that, you know, she mentioned to me, or maybe it was Eddie, but said, you don't actually remember what pain feels like. You know, you remember the painful moment, but you don't actually remember. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I broke my arm in 8th grade. I don't know what a broken arm feels like.
Yep.
I remember it hurt a lot.
Yep.
You know? But I mean, I can think of pain, physical, emotional, mental, all that stuff. And you don't know what it feels like, but like you said earlier, all of those hard, those difficult moments, that's what brings it in. And I want them to feel that. I want them to be challenged in all those ways.
Yeah. I mean, I think they got to have it. They have to have those challenges because they're going to be faced with them, you know, inevitably. If they're not put in a position where sort of they have the ability to choose to do it, right? Voluntary hardship. If they don't learn to do that and practice that, overcoming a voluntary hardship, they're going to be in a tough spot because the world's going to smack them down.
Yep.
It's just going to happen. You don't know what form or shape it's going to take, if it's going to be a family member letting you down, or, you know, a friend betraying you, or a divorce, or whatever. But something bad's going to happen. And the more that you can kind of practice overcoming that shit and just making it part of your, you know, just your life, practicing it, you'll be better off for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, so much of kids' days right now, and it's also structured.
Very scheduled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
This came up at our leadership summit. So we just had our leadership summit last weekend. That's where 130 volunteers from around the different adventure teams came up for basically leadership training. So on Saturday, it was 5 or 6 presentations, different topics. You know, how to work with kids at Bike Club. I had a keynote. I also talked about standards, why standards are important, and the impact and influence they have over an organization and the culture of the organization, and ultimately the product of an organization offers. James, to me, the one that resonated the most is Dr. James Reinhardt did a presentation on basically the state of youth health. And, you know, and I've been talking about this since the summit, which was just like 4 days ago. And I'm going to keep talking about it because it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. People, I don't think they'd like to hear the state of youth health. I don't think they like to hear it, because if they hear it and they don't do anything, now they're part of the problem because they're not doing anything to change it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's super uncomfortable to talk about. But when you look at the data that he provided, and it was all data provided through, you know, named sources and studies and different things that he referenced. So it's all legit. Kids are obese at an alarming rate. Kids are experiencing loneliness more than at any point, you know, in recorded history. Just with the different charts and graphs that he was showing, they feel alone. They feel disconnected. They feel isolated, but not in a good crusher way. The screen time.
Yeah. So
he had a couple metrics on that. Screen time, now this was somewhat tied to age. I'm going to say tweens or teens, 8 hours a day, upwards of 8 hours a day. So he even, for sake of this presentation, he went into his phone and he's like, well, geez, I wonder how much I'm on my phone. And he took screenshots of it and put it in the presentation, and he's on his phone like 8.5 hours a day. And he's like, holy shit. Like, you don't even know you're doing it, you know? So and the 8.5 hours of screen time is coming from a device.
Right.
This does not include the time at school on Chromebooks or the other digital, you know, equipment they're on. Think about that. Mm-hmm. I think it was 80% of kids are not getting the recommended amount of physical activity daily. Right. So they had all these really alarming metrics, depression, anxiety, all on the upswing. And then the number that stuck out is, because, you know, he went through all the data and he's like, so this isn't good, but what do we do about it? And he said, the good news is adventure team programming, like what we do with the kids on bikes, and we're starting a running piece of it also. He said, this is what they need, because 80% of kids report when they're outside, they're happier, they feel better, and they feel more connected, right? But at the same, so you got 80% of kids love to be outdoors, or they feel better outside, but 80% of kids aren't getting enough exercise.
Right. Yep.
It's just, it blows my mind. It blows my mind.
And even, you know, I mean, I get asked about nutrition or supplements or whatever else, and the number one supplement I tend to recommend people is vitamin D.
Yeah.
You know, we're deficient all over the place.
Yep.
Kids especially.
Which you're pulling from sun, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Get out, you know, just fresh air on your face, you know, sunshine, all of that stuff it's incredible. You know, for your immune system, for development and everything else. It's the answer is the simple answer, but simple and easy are different.
They definitely are.
Yep. So it's harder, you know, and yeah, with kids, I see it in my office too. You know, and there's a whole bunch of nutrition stuff there, and I can, you know, think about kids that I said, you know, let's try this nutritional plan. It's going to be brutal to start.
Yeah.
You know, but you've got to get them off, you know, food coloring, you know, certain simple sugars, certain stuff that just feeds all of that. And then, just outside, you know, I've told kids 20 minutes, just go outside. I don't care if you sit in your front yard for 20 minutes, just go do that, you know?
Do you think, you brought up food coloring, and, you know, when you look at the food that we're eating, not just us, but our kids, it's not good.
No.
Right? Do you think that if there wasn't a financial implication to the companies that make this stuff, let's say you could somehow insulate the economy in the country from, you know, economic devastation, do you think people would be more motivated to change things and to say, quote, do the right thing? Because I think it's well documented that a lot of what we're eating and a lot of what we're putting in our bodies, it doesn't belong there and it's not good.
Yes.
Right. But the consequences, I think that, like, you literally some companies would just go away. Jobs would go away. The economy would negatively be impacted. I mean, is that part of the problem? Is this just so ingrained into the economic engine that we can't afford to change it?
I think so. I mean, it's
what it feels like.
Yep. I think we over and over again, and, you know, if you know, believe in any kind of evolutionary changes in our biology, we're not designed to digest or deal with certain foods or chemicals that we have right now, you know, whether it's carbohydrates or grains or, you know, synthetic materials or whatever else. And so but it's all easier.
Yeah.
It's more cost effective. We need food. We need to eat for calories and for nutrients. And the majority of the food we eat is very calorie dense and is a nutrient desert, you know, but it can sit on a shelf for years on end.
A nutrient desert. That's funny. That's true.
Right. So, I mean, if we could reset it, you know, think about how a raspberry is really, really good.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
But if you compare it to a raspberry flavored fruit snack, it's hard. But I mean, there's got to be an investment in food that goes bad, you know, that food that's living.
Yeah.
And it's not more expensive, in my opinion, to eat that way, but you have to eat it. If you buy a bunch of bananas and you eat one of them and the rest all turn brown and, you know, go in the garbage, well, that's a waste of money, you know, but it's not more expensive, I don't think, to make the healthier decisions, you know, or healthier choices, but you need to then be disciplined in it. And that's the tough part. And I'm far from perfect on that in all the ways, you know,
for sure.
It's a battle, but, you know, you can see it. I mean, like I said, when I see kids in my office where it's, you know, they've already got like that hump, you know, like I said, we're trying to fight gravity.
Yes.
We're already here. I'll walk in and they'll be like this. And how you doing? Well, my neck hurts and I have a headache, you know,
Yeah.
and yep, they're maybe a little bit overweight from where they should be, and they're pale.
Because they're not outside.
And outside. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how you unpack that. I mean, like, I think maybe it's changing the perspective because, we were talking a little bit about your background being a chiropractor. I think that you would never want to make yourself obsolete, right? I think that there's other ways, like find different ways, whether you're making a product or you're providing a health service or whatever it might be, find different ways to adapt that profession that you're in to help people get better, because there's no end line, like there's no finish line to getting better.
Right.
You can continue to get better. The unfortunate thing is, I think that a lot of companies, their finish line is they've sold the product, they're moving on,
Right.
because they're just trying to find consumers. You know what I mean? So I think there'd have to be an extreme paradigm shift, but I think it is doable at the same time. When I was talking to a group of professionals a week ago, I threw the question out to them. It was a bunch of HR folks, and they're hosting a summit essentially centered around the idea of resilience, making their companies more resilient, making their human resource folks more resilient, or making their employees more resilient. And I kind of threw the question out. I'd love to know if anybody's thought about it actually since we talked. Because I said, a big complaint from employers is that people don't work hard anymore. They want a lot of money for a little bit of work. They don't want to put in the time. They don't want to put in the effort. And I believe that those are all major issues that employers are dealing with. At the same time, I asked them, I'm like, are we part of the problem? Because going back to doing the hard stuff, most of the products, services, and solutions that you're selling to people make things easier. And that is part of our problem, because people, like, was it your daughter that said that you don't remember the pain?
Yep.
Right? Well, if you can avoid the hard thing now, you're going to avoid the hard thing at all costs, because when you kind of end up in a spot where you have to do the hard thing again, that does not feel good.
Right.
I do not want to do that. I'm going to go buy this so I don't have to do that. Right. Or think about just, services or solutions. A lot of those are aimed at solving problems for people that the person themselves can't solve for themselves.
Right.
So they don't get the opportunity to, I heard you say earlier that you felt like finding God helped get you through that, and God did something, removed something in that equation that allowed you to find success in getting away from drinking, right? But you still did some hard work there. There's still something there you had to do. You had to own things you had done. You talked about guilt. Like, there's some reconciliation that took place within yourself to be here today telling me you haven't had a drink since before Margie. That's the shit that everybody wants to avoid. If there's a pill they could take to avoid all that soul searching and that reconciliation, they'd probably take the pill, because they don't have to go through the pain.
Right.
That's what's wrong with us.
And that's, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Or looking for comfort. Your walls just keep,
they're shrinking in. Yeah. And I said that this weekend. I said, we're teaching kids to be afraid of everything. And in the process, we're making the world smaller. We're bringing the walls in around them, because now I don't want to leave my house. I'm not going to go outside. Fuck, it's scary out there.
I just listened to a podcast. It's The Dollop, and it's hilarious. It's two comedians, and they tell American history stories, and one guy knows the story and the other doesn't, so he just comments on it. And the story from this week was on the Abernathy brothers, which were a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old who in the 1930s rode horses from Oklahoma to California. And they're just talking. I mean, it's insane. It could never happen today. Like the dad somehow allowed this to happen, but one of the comedians said, like, here, these boys are deciding that they're going to, and then they go to New York, like they're all over it's insane. But, and he's like, and now we can't even eat peanuts as kids, because everything, we're not exposed to things like
Right.
we were. And yeah, and obviously within reason, but we're so afraid, of that fear motivator,
Yep.
or protection. And that's where that structure comes from and everything else. And,
Yep.
and I mean, I know that with my kids, like I said, I used to always, okay, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this activity, and then this activity, and the whole time we're not actually, like, are we enjoying the activity or just doing it, and
I think there's a lot of just doing it.
yeah,
I don't know that kids, I think kids in general, a lot of them are burned out. I don't think that they get to be a kid anymore. I'm working with a basketball team right now, first time in 8 years or so since I've coached basketball, and great kids. I can't believe how much they're doing, how many different sports they're doing. No judgment. I'm just saying, like, they're so overscheduled. Like, they can't even make all the practices for one of the teams because they're on so many teams. I'm not saying don't do that, but there is a consequence to that. We're not here to unpack what the consequence is, but it's just not, you can see it in the kids by the end of practice. We practice twice a week right now. They're, because we run difficult practices. There's lots of running. At the beginning of practice a month and a half ago, the kids were like, oh my God, I've never run this much in my entire life. We're just doing it to make them stronger and more fit so that in the fourth quarter, when there's 3 minutes left on the clock, they're not sucking wind. It's the other team that is.
Right.
It's intentional. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes I'm like, they're not getting, not only are they not getting a break from us, but they're not getting a break from anybody else either.
right.
Because they got to run off the track, and they got to run off to this, and they got to run off to that.
Guilty as charged with my kids,
Yeah,
and
it's a lot.
yep, my son's doing a lot, and he was sick earlier this week, and we're thinking maybe it's just a little too much, and my daughter Emerin, she was, there's a sign up for soccer right now, and she's like, I don't really like soccer, and we're going, are you sure, and yeah, and she's been pretty steadfast. Good for her.
Yeah.
Really want to do it, and gotta listen to that and honor that too.
Yeah. I don't remember what the exact question was at the summit this past weekend. There was a volunteer panel Saturday night, and there was a question like to the three panelists. I was one of them. It was something along the lines of like, share your biggest regret, or the one thing that you wish you could undo that didn't go well, over this span of time. And I said, you know what, I'll tell you, I know my mind immediately went back to what it was. It was like 2016 or 2017 when it was still the first 5-6 kids, 4 906 Adventure Team and me. And, we didn't know what we were doing. But we were training kids to race bikes. We were racing bikes at that time. That's all the kids did. There was no adventure bike club. We had a girl on the team who was a athlete. She's strong. She'll put in the work. You tell her what to do, she'll go do it. Loved it. But she was also in soccer. So she was doing, multiple workouts a week with us. And then I don't know how much she was doing with soccer, but it was a lot. And I kept trying to figure out how we could balance that workload, with the parents. Ultimately, it didn't. She burned out and she quit riding. That to me was the biggest failure, the biggest regret that I had in the past 11 years is that one kid who I don't even know where she is right now in life. But I felt responsible for not finding a way to prevent that from happening because she didn't want to ride her bike anymore. Who knows? Maybe she does now, but back then it was like, God, it doesn't have to be like that.
Right.
The bike races were not more important than her desire to ride a bike. It just wasn't. They were never more important, but we acted like they were. Yeah, that was the biggest regret for me. Oh, sucked. But I guess, the good news is I used that moving forward because in 2017, that's when we started Adventure Bike Club.
Right.
And that's, that competitive model that's just you versus you. It's not me versus you. And that's been successful. It's been good.
I bought my son a you versus you shirt.
Did you?
Yep.
I love it.
Even after his last track meet,
I love it.
He didn't set a PR in the mile, so he felt like he was disappointed. And I said, you are, what did you have today for this event?
Yeah.
Like that, just compare you today This is not what your PR is or whatever else. And don't be so, don't be so hard on yourself, if things don't go right, and don't be, so don't downplay the victories either. You know what I mean? But kids are always like looking for that, or the external comparison or whatever else. And comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, that's 100% true.
So,
yeah. And I don't think that it's, it's always been this way for kids, that pressure of comparison. But the tools that we've created for them to be able to compare themselves to others 24 hours a day, that's what's made it more challenging, I think, to navigate that murky water. Because now, beating a dead horse on it, but, we didn't have devices like that. I didn't have devices like that when I was a kid. So when I went home from school, do homework, maybe do homework, but straight into the woods.
Yeah.
And I was running around the woods until my mom or dad would track us down and yell at us about dinner. Now, they're connected to that friend group all the way home on the bus or in the car or whatever. And they're never away from it, or they don't have to be away from it. They can be connected to it 24 hours a day.
Yeah. I think of that too. I mean, I could not be a kid these days. I'm glad I was a kid when I was a kid, but at the same time, when I have an opportunity to work with them, I mean, they're not coming up with these problems on their own.
No.
It's coming from us.
It's from the adults.
Right. So
yeah,
I can't hold them accountable.
No.
And
no.
It's what can we do to try and help?
Yeah. Yeah. I started saying that, probably 8 years ago, that people talking about kids these days, hey, newsflash, it's not the kids, it's the leaders. We're creating the stuff that they're struggling with, and we're not giving them ways to work through it. We have to be, your theme today has been be present, and I think that is really what it's going to take in order for things to get a little bit better, is that the adults find a way to cut out some of the distractions they have and be more present for kids. Go back to that data. I mean, we can put it out on our Facebook page and share it with people, or I could throw it in an email and just send it out to the mailing list. Here, I at least want to know that I made this available to you, so we need to be more present with our kids, because they're not doing well.
No.
And there's no reason for it.
Right. It's
they just need us there.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, personally, I need to take care of myself too, and
Yep.
learn those lessons. And then
Yep.
I can control what I can control, and, and just be present right here and make the first right decision. Another thing I remind myself often is that I am not in charge of my first thought, because my first thought is often not good.
Yeah.
I can choose my second thought, and I can choose the first action I take. And, that's something that, I come back to a lot, that, there's the first thing I'm thinking about doing is, or that voice, that's not a good one.
Yeah.
I'm not the one, I'm not my thoughts. I'm just the one hearing them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that's you touch on an important part there, that it's, you want the kids taking care of themselves, but at the same time, you have to model that.
yes.
You have to take care of yourself. They need to see their parents doing that. I've told people that, if you're barking at your kids to go do X, Y, Z, but they see you not doing it, I mean, it's not a good example. There's no credibility there.
Right.
But if you're right there shoulder to shoulder doing with them what you're telling them they should be doing to be a responsible, healthy adult, that's a whole different ballgame. Just talking to kids sort of at a equal level, even not talking down to them, which I think that was more common when we were younger. That doesn't fly anymore.
No.
You can't talk down to kids. I mean, they shouldn't have at any point, but it's just, that is the number one way to get them to tune out and not listen to anything you say, whether it makes sense or not.
And they're going to push back too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Or not push back, nod and smile, and then nothing changes either.
Yeah. And some pushing back is a good thing, because it's a demonstration of testing their boundaries and kind of trying to develop some freedom, but it's got to be done in a healthy way too. You said that you thought your son might do one of the events at some time?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Think
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, I think they've seen me and my interests and, you know, my growth
Yeah.
through the challenges. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a whole family, you know, event
Yeah,
at
that'd
some
be
point
fun.
trying something.
That'd be
you know?
fun. Take them out on a Crusher EX40.
Yeah.
Do it as a family. That's actually been probably one of the most common, let's say, community or group ride events we have in our wheelhouse. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I kind of take it as it comes and
Yep.
do it when you want. And
Get 12 hours.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like you're in a race because you're timing yourself off your head unit. It's really, that is like, if you thought that the girls would ever be up for it, whether it's running or biking, that would be the event to try because the pressure is minimal.
Right.
And it's just you.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of parent-kid combos have done that, or parents with multiple kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember in 2020 during COVID when everybody was doing Crusher because there's nothing else to do. The first time that, if Cable wasn't the first 8-year-old to complete the EX40, he was one of, but he was 8. And from that point forward, it's like once people saw that an 8-year-old had showed up and did it, then more 8-year-olds and older started showing up and doing it. It was fantastic.
Sure. You mentioned that in a previous podcast about changing the buckle time. You know, as soon as it happens, it's going to change.
It's going to happen more.
Yep.
It just needs to happen once.
Right. There's a documentary out right now about the Barkley Marathons and the first female finish.
Yep.
And it's phenomenal.
Yep.
You know, but it's now that it happened, it's going to happen more. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
It's so much of that is that central governor that's, you know, limiting factor inside individuals.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
no, just once somebody figures out the recipe, it's
Yeah. Then it's on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost like you were just kind of saying, until somebody does it, we see it as impossible because there isn't a blueprint for having done it.
Right.
But then as soon as it gets done and you can look at the blueprint, you're like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How did I think of that?
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes possible. We were wild animals that way. Well, you know, because I'll tell you, like 906 in our events and, you know, what we've done, there was no blueprint. And had we tried to do the traditional 5-year plan bullshit, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be sitting here doing this today. I actually think that a big part of our success is we've been disruptive and dissatisfied with the status quo. And that's what has set us apart. And we're not afraid to do things different. And we're not afraid to have people not happy.
That goes back. I mean, I can understand that. Now, obviously not as much with the adventure team, but just with the events. The events are different and the energy. I mean, you know, guys that I brought up, you know, when they've seen that, they've felt it and then they've been interested in it, you know?
Yeah.
Like I said, I mentioned I mean, I know there's going to be more of them trying the 100, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, Clinton came up, he tried the 50 and he got absolutely destroyed. And then last year he finished it, you know, buddy. So, I mean, it's like you said, it's not a quitter. It's you come back, you know, you learn opportunity and then you come back, but it's just a different environment of a different mindset, which
totally different.
Yep. Which once I finally showed up and tried it, I mean, I guess I knew that I wasn't ready or subconsciously at some level when I just kept pinning those bibs up in my office, you know?
Yeah, that is an interesting story. I didn't know that or don't remember hearing that before, but to hear that you were doing that, I just think it's an indication that whether it was subconscious or not, you knew you weren't ready.
Yeah. I was injured I remember I was injured another year. I didn't work out family stuff, whatever else. And, you know, but I just, whatever it was, I didn't do it until all of a sudden, here I go. And then,
yeah, hearing you say the injury thing, and this is not, I'm not saying that anybody should do anything injured, just to be clear. I'm not a doctor. I am not giving up medical advice. But I do know that some people convince themselves that they've got a medical issue that is really just, it's a card to get out of doing something. Like I think about, I just mentioned this the other day on a podcast, Matt Graves during I think it was the 2019 Crusher, he broke his back. I don't know, 15, 20 miles into the event. He crashed. He literally broke his back. Again, I'm not saying that you should break your back and do the crusher, but he broke his back. He didn't know it was broken. He knew it fucking hurt. But he got on his bike and he finished. And then he found out he had a broken back days later when he went to the doctor. And they're like, dude, your back is broken. And he's like, what? He's like, I just finished this 240-mile bike ride. And they're like, what? But it's just, what we're capable of.
Yeah.
When you don't know of maybe what a limitation is. You know what I mean? It's what brings it. It's just amazing. It blows me away.
Yep. And it doesn't need to be Crusher 225. It
No.
doesn't need to be Margie Mini, Margie. It's just, like I said, just go outside, walk to the end of the block.
Yes.
I mean, just those little things. Just it's simple. Not easy, but it's simple, and you got to just start. And
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. And it probably will be, for a lot of people, short. But when you go from 0 to 1 mile, that's a pretty big jump. That's a big jump.
before I ran that first marathon in 2004, I ran 9 miles from Elkhart Lake to Plymouth. I got dropped off. I stashed some water, along the route back to Plymouth. And when I finished that 9-mile run, I could not believe I did it.
Yeah.
So proud of myself. I ran 1/3 of one marathon.
Surprise yourself.
Right. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
So
And look at where it's gone since then.
sure. Now, we sit around talking, all of a sudden someone's like, well, you just did the 50 that year. That's not how it works. It's not just it's not a just. But wherever any individual is, you can, take that next step out a little bit and see.
Yeah.
So
There's always another level. There's always another level.
I was just at a meeting, and it was brought up, what's the meaning of life? And the reading, was growth. As soon as you stop growing, that's when you start dying, I think. So
There is no finish line,
that works too.
except for this podcast.
Yes.
We might be at the finish line. It's
We
like
might be.
It's 20 after 2.
I have to go to my daughter's in a play tonight. So
What time do you have to be back?
6 o'clock that time. So I luckily gain an hour. So
How long's your drive?
4 hours.
Yeah, you need to hit the freaking road, bro. We're going to cut out. Nick, it's been great having you, brother.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome, man. We'll have to have you back.
Deal.
All right. Out.